Hey, what's up everyone? Welcome to Interesting Reddit Stories. I'm really excited to share this video with you, packed with tons of true Reddit stories about encounters and experiences people have had. I'll keep this intro short because I honestly can't wait to dive into these incredible stories. Seriously, you're going to want to stick around for all of them. They're definitely worth hearing. Also, before we jump in, it would mean so much if you could subscribe to the channel and like this video. Your support really helps, and I appreciate it more than you know. Alright, let's get to it. Welcome to Interesting Reddit Stories. Stories number 1. Aita for crying when my boyfriend let his best friend's wife alter the dish I made for dinner. He said he needed space from the relationship. I think with the way this post blew up and what happened because of a post, I should clear up some things. I never asked if I should leave my boyfriend for this. I asked if this was an overreaction, my crying, but having thousands of people tell me this was racially charged. Ellie wanted power. My BF is shitty, etc. My brain went haywire. BF called yesterday, and when I got there, his house, with my best friend, Dave and Ellie were there. Ellie was crying, and Dave looked really pissed at me. My BF told me to sit down, and Dave started with, how could I make a post that most of the people in the dinner party would recognize and know, and could shame Ellie and my BF. My BF was silent and wouldn't even look at me and was only shaking his head. It felt like I was a kid, being scolded by my parents with my elder sibling disappointed in my actions. That is what I felt, and it looked. I admit, it was very spineless of me, but Dave went on for like a minute, and I was just looking at my BF waiting for him to defend me. I asked Ellie, why would she alter my dish after telling me to bring an Indian dish? She said she thought Indian food would be brown. This woman has more Indian friends than me, and she thinks Indian food is brown. She grew up in the UK, FFs, and I felt so defeated. The comments, my friends, and people around me telling me his friends came first to him, not me. He said he didn't think the sweet was a big deal. I told him I would never let my friend alter something he spent 3 days learning, getting people to taste it, and got his mom involved in. He saw I put a lot of effort into it, so why let her alter it? Why couldn't he ask me? Ellie started to cry and say that she wasn't being racist, and she wouldn't know that I put effort into it, and now she couldn't host dinners again. I said I used fake names, so why does it matter, unless she and Dave went around telling people? BF told me he didn't expect this from me. My best friend piped up that he expected that my BF would have a thing spine, so I guess they were both disappointed. My IG now EX BF told me, in front of Dave and Ellie, that he needs some space. I told him to get lost. I don't, what my best friend said to him after that, considering I left BF's flat. I kind of tripped in the metro station, so now I'm crying on my best friend's couch with an ice pack while his BF keeps giving me peach schnapps and my relationship has toppled over. I wouldn't have stormed out had he looked at me once. He just looked 100% on Dave and Ellie's side and acted like I was the one with the problem when she caused me hurt. If his friends come first when they cause me hurt, where would I have been if I decided to marry this man? My friends are good to me and are acting like I'm some fragile glass. I even heard my best friend and his brother whispering loudly from the kitchen and his elder brother wanting to threaten him via Insta DMs. I hate that this has come to this, considering I have always been the mom friend to my friend group. I'm drunk while writing this, so have some grace in the comments. Also, if you'll be an incel like those people in my DMs, telling me I'll never keep a man if I'm this dramatic, please go away. I just thought I needed to update. That's it. Thanks guys. Edit. Guys, this is the first time I've faced what y'all have been calling racism. TBI, I didn't see Ellie putting cinnamon into my Rosagala as racism. I was just hurt that my days of hard work was ruined. That's it. I understand I need to work on my self-esteem and not let people walk over me. My best friend's elder brother, he's a doctor and is super pissed at my ex-RN because he didn't know what happened. Booked an appointment with a therapist he knows, as he thinks I need mental help to not normalize aggressive behavior. I'm sorry for ranting on Reddit, but I guess that's where I am. Both my best friend and I will be going. He had been there for some time before, and the situation is tense at home because Dada, Bestie's brother, didn't know what was happening and tore my friends a new one for not protesting when Dave said shit to me. I still haven't told him it was over a Reddit post and that I'm writing here. I feel awful, and I don't know how to tell my mom she was right. I wish I never went out with him. One of my ex's friends from the dinner party asked me if I really left my ex over dessert, so I guess that's what he told people. It hurts. I know it shouldn't, but it hurts. I think it is partially my fault. I shouldn't have let myself be treated like this. There were signs, and I ignored them, and now I think I'll never have another relationship because it feels like a horrible, anxious feeling. Stories number 2, Aya for calling my parents selfish for having me, knowing they'd pass down a hereditary illness, and going LC after they hid it, putting my child at risk too. Edit. Most of you figured it out anyway. It is Huntington's. Update. I ended up telling my siblings. We met at my sister's house, and I just came out with it. I have Huntington's. It's hereditary. You should both get checked. My brother started panicking. He and his fiancée just started trying to get pregnant, and now he's terrified. He's furious with our parents and fully on my side. He confronted them right after, and now we're both going low contact. My sister was more shocked and distant, but she said she'll get tested. My parents are pissed that I told them without waiting for the right time, but I don't regret it. My siblings deserve the truth, and I wasn't going to let them live in ignorance like I did. I, 28F, recently found out I have a serious hereditary illness that's going to screw up my life, and I am so mad I can barely type this out. It's a degenerative illness. No cure, nothing. My body's just going to slowly get worse. And the kicker? My parents have known this could happen my whole life, and never said a damn word. This illness runs in my family. My dad's mom had it. His sister, my aunt, died from it a few years ago. I was living overseas when she passed, and my parents told me it was cancer. Cancer. They lied right to my face. It wasn't until I got diagnosed that they finally came clean and admitted she had the same illness I do. When I confronted them, my dad wouldn't even give me a straight answer. I asked if he had it too, and he dodged every single question, acting like I was overreacting. My mom, on the other hand, tried to justify it by saying they didn't want me living in fear. Are you kidding me? I could have been prepared. Instead, they chose to let me walk into this blind. And here's where it gets worse. I have a 2-year-old son. My child might have this, and they never told me I was at risk. I could have had him tested, made informed decisions, anything. But no, they took that from me, and now I live in constant fear for him too. Then my mom had the nerve to ask me if I would have rather not been born than deal with this. Can you believe that? She turned it around on me, like I'm the monster for even thinking it. And you know what? Yes, I said it. Yes, I would rather not have been born than deal with this disease. They made a selfish choice, and now I'm paying for it. They knew the risks and did it anyway for themselves. They wanted kids, and now I'm stuck with this. I called them selfish, and I meant every word. Now they're begging me not to tell my younger siblings. They don't know about this yet, haven't been tested, and my parents want to keep it that way. They're hoping they'll get lucky, but I'm not going to lie to them. I refuse to let them be blindsided like I was. They deserve to know the truth. I've gone low contact with my parents. I can't stand to even think about them right now. My mom keeps trying to guilt trip me, saying they were just trying to protect me. Protect me from what? The truth? No, they weren't protecting me. They were protecting themselves from the guilt of knowing they passed this on, and now they want me to protect them too. But I won't. I love my son and my siblings too much to lie to them. Aita for going LC and refusing to keep their secret, even though they claimed they were just trying to protect me. Update. Aita for calling my parents selfish for having me, knowing they'd passed down a hereditary illness and going LC after they hid it, putting my child at risk too. First post, I told my siblings we met at my sister's house and I just came out with it. I told them what I had and said that it was hereditary. My sister thanked me for telling her, told me she would get tested but seemed distant. I get it is very heavy. So I have been giving her space, but made it clear that I am there for her. My brother looked horrified. He and his fiancée had just started trying for a baby, and the fear in his eyes was immediate. His fiancée, who works as a senior nurse in palliative care, didn't take it lightly either. She deals with degenerative diseases every day and had a family member die from one, so this news hit her hard. She immediately took control of the situation. She has a lot of connections in the medical field because of her work, and she's been pulling strings to get my brother's test done as fast as possible. She's also been making sure I get the care I need, reaching out to specialists she knows personally. She's actually moving things around and calling in favors to ensure I'm seen quickly. On top of that, she's been adamant that I need to see a counselor, pushing me to get emotional support. Given her experience, she knows how hard this is going to be, and I'm grateful she's making it happen, because I wouldn't know where to begin. My husband and I have also been having difficult conversations about the future. We've decided to make my will, and I've been clear with him about when I won't want to continue living if things get too bad. I've also started recording videos for my son. I watched P.S. I Love You years ago, and the idea of leaving something behind for my husband and son feels like a way to hold on to a part of me. We're planning to speak to a child psychologist soon to figure out the best way to prepare our son for what's coming, though we haven't started yet. And also to weigh our option about him and the possibility of him getting this illness from me. We are not going to make an uniform decision. On Saturday, our parents invited all of us over to their house, saying they wanted to talk. My sister came too, but she didn't stay long. As soon as my parents started explaining how they kept the illness hidden to protect us, she couldn't take it. She stood up, said she couldn't handle it, and left. She's been distant since, and it feels like I've lost her a little. I know she's terrified, but it still hurts to see her pulling away. After my sister left, everything exploded. My parents turned on me, blaming me for ruining the family and accusing me of causing all this chaos by telling the truth. They kept saying they did it to protect us, but I just couldn't respond anymore. That's when my brother's fiancée stepped in. She completely laid into them, telling them that they had no right to keep something this serious from us. She told them they hadn't protected us, they had betrayed us, and I was so relieved she stepped in because I didn't have the energy to argue anymore. Then my dad snapped. He started shouting at her, telling her to stay out of it, and he shoved me. I couldn't even react. I was so shocked. My husband immediately stepped between us, grabbed my dad's arm, and told him he'd better never touch me again. My dad just kept shouting, saying I was the one who was tearing the family apart and blowing everything out of proportion. That was it. We left. My brother and his fiancée walked out with us, and since then, none of us have spoken to my parents. They've been calling, but I don't want to hear their excuses. They're still insisting they did everything to protect us, but it feels like they were just protecting themselves from guilt. I don't have the energy for their manipulations anymore. Right now, my brother and I are focused on getting tested. His fiancée is doing everything she can to keep things moving forward. She's been an incredible support, and we're relying on her to help us navigate what's next. I'm focusing on my son, my husband, and preparing for the future. There's too much at stake to keep fighting about a secret that never should have been kept in the first place. Stories number 3 AIO, to my partner's one-time mistake and not giving him a second chance. Apologies for my English. I'm still trying to be fluent. I, F26, met my partner, M39, 6 years ago when I first moved to Canada from Germany. We moved in together within 1 year. We work in different fields, but we make about the same amount annually. I found out I got pregnant in July. When I told him, he got frustrated. I told him that I repeatedly reminded him about medication interactions and doctor-advised using condoms while I'm on this medication, and he refused. Eventually, he said he is happy to be a dad and supports me. We got invited to a destination wedding in Mexico, his friend's wedding. I told him my doctor advised me not to travel as I have been very sick lately, hospitalized a few times, so I can't go. He got upset and said he really wanted to go. I got tired of hearing his grumpiness, so I said I would be fine. It's just a week, so it's okay, just go. I talked to his mom and she said she would drive me to the hospital again if I need to, while he will be away. Wedding was last Tuesday. He left on Saturday evening. He sent some pictures to me on the day. He said he missed me and how he wished I was there, which I said, hopefully we can do more trips when the baby is here. Then he was quiet on Wednesday. I got worried, so I texted his friend. He replied, "Oh, yeah, he is fine. I'll tell him to text you." Still nothing. On Friday evening, so last night, he called me. I asked him what was going on. I was worrying sick. He asked how I was doing, if I needed help. I said I'm good, luckily no, I have been fine. He then said he needed to talk to me. He made a horrible drunken mistake. He hooked up with one of the bridesmaids, bride's sister, and brought her to his room. But in the morning, he realized what a fool he was, so he told her to leave. He said, "I made a mistake, but you have to realize, if you were with me, this wouldn't have happened. I was drunk and lonely. It was a one-time thing and meant nothing." I felt like my brain was frozen. I said, "And you ghosted me for days, and tell me now? Were you busy with her all this time?" He said, "No, I needed time to think. I was ashamed." I told him, "Don't bother coming home. Stay with her or your mom until I find a place, then I don't want to ever see you again." He said I'm being selfish, hormonal, and overreacting to one mistake. He said he took responsibility, owned his mistake, and will do anything to prove it to me. Am I overrating for not even considering this for the sake of the baby? My best friend says we should try counseling and give him one last chance, but I'm just so upset I can't even think. Update. As many of you suggested, I sent a quick message to his friend and the bridesmaid he slept with. I told them that Kyle had admitted about his hookup and says it was an untimed thing, But I'm wondering if there is more to the story that you like to share. They both blocked me. Then all his friends blocked me on social media. Last night, late, he sent me a message, I think he was drunk, that I'm an unhinged lunatic. He did the right thing and owned his mistake and confessed to me, yet I acted like a crazy cunt and harassed his friends and their family. He met the bridesmaid. He said I'm so insecure, it's pathetic. He said we are done and he wants me out of his house immediately. He didn't even once mention the baby. I decided not to bother replying. I had no energy and was crying all day. I'm moving back to my family, I decided last night, early morning tomorrow. My family is happy that I'm moving back, especially my mother. I don't think I'll say goodbye to his mom. I'm not ready to talk to him and she will make him do that. Update, I'm sitting in the airport waiting for my flight, so I thought I'd write one last update. I messaged his mom and told her what happened. I was shocked when she called back immediately and was furious with me. She said I have some nerve twisting the story to covering my cheating ass. I told her I don't understand what she was talking about. Apparently he told everyone including his mom that he checked my social media. He had all my passwords but I never asked any of his. I have changed them all now. And found out I was having an affair with a coworker and was trying to trick him to raise my affair baby. I told her most of my team work virtually, so this makes no sense. I also have maybe 25 followers on my Instagram, and most of them are my family from back home. I also have a rule to never add any of my coworkers on social media because I rather keep my personal life and professional life separate. She said her son found out when he was alone in Mexico, and now he is heartbroken. Then went on and on about how could I do that to him and stuff. I kept explaining, but she wasn't listening. I was so upset, I told her that I'm done arguing and hung up. I'm done with this man and his lies. He just makes up lies and blames me for it. I can't do this anymore. I submitted time off to my boss. She is amazing and will be settling for the next few weeks. Looking forward to the new chapter of my life without him. Stories number 4, Aita for refusing to help my seal with her kids while on vacation. For the record, I know my brother is an asshole. I, 23F, am a child-free ER nurse. I don't like kids, even if they're related to me. My boyfriend feels the same way. I've always had the stance to friends and family that I will never babysit ever. It's never been an issue until now. My parents rented a cabin this past weekend. The family hasn't gotten together in a long time, and since it was our mom's birthday wish, we took a vacation. In attendance was our parents, my 3 older brothers, my brother David's wife, and their 6 combined kids, 4 of which are just my Sill's kids from a previous marriage, and 2 are hers and David's, including a 4-week-old baby. Her and David have the agreement that he will pay all the bills, and she will do all of the childcare. He does absolutely nothing for his kids, except playing ball with her oldest in the yard sometimes. I think she's dumb for agreeing to this one-sided arrangement, but she's been a Sam her entire adult life and has no earning potential, so I guess that's why she agreed to it. On the trip, for some reason, Sill had it in her head that because I'm a woman close in age, that I would help her with her kids the whole time so she could take a break. She kept trying to hand me her baby, or would ask me to do stuff for her kids. Every time I would say no, and would tell her to ask her husband. I only went on this trip to spend time with my family, who I rarely see. My parents live 3 states away, and I rarely get to see them. By the end of the trip, Sill would alternate between constantly crying to making rude, snippy comments at me. I feel like it's completely undeserved. I didn't marry her or get her pregnant, and she isn't even related to me. I have no clue why she isn't mad at my brother, and not me. He was kind of clear about him being an asshole before she even married him. He told her that he wouldn't change a single diaper, but she decided he would be the man to give her babies number 5 and 6. Stories number 5. My 26F family has been maintaining a relationship with my rapist behind my back. Aita for completely cut ties. My first time posting, so bear with me. Apologies in advance for the length. I'm flabbergasted and don't know what to do. I truly appreciate anyone who takes the time to share their perspective. I, 26F, was drugged and abused by my uncle, 47M, after a wedding when I was 20. Backstory. My mom's half-brother Mike was like a father figure to me my whole life. Always kind, caring, and loving towards me. Took me multi-night hikes, skiing trips, etc. He was who I called before signing up for classes, first job interview, etc. Behind closed doors, my home life was a fucking Dateline-worthy nightmare, story for another day, so it felt good to have someone in my corner. Mike never, ever, ever made me feel unsafe, preyed upon, etc. Flash forward. I'm 20 years old and just broke up with my long-term BF. I was down in the dumps. Mike called me and said his college friends were getting married. My aunt, Mike's wife, couldn't make the wedding. She's a homebody with 2 toddlers. He asked if I wanted to go instead to hang out with him over the weekend. His friends were all getting together to go sailing, to the beach, etc. He said he had a hotel room with a pull-out couch so I could stay with him. He had already bought the plane ticket and didn't want it to go to waste. I didn't think anything of it and said yes. In hindsight, internet strangers might think that's weird, which is why I gave the backstory. He took me places all the time. Wasn't a red flag to me. I flew down that weekend and caught the tail end of the reception after party. It was casual, nothing weird. He brought me 3 or 4 drinks over the course of like 4 hours, and the next thing I know, I wake up cloth off in bed, unable to physically move, drifting in and out of consciousness, and he's trying to have length, making love with me. The next morning, this incestuous excuse of man starts going on and on about how it was the best experience of his life, that it's a shame I can't remember, what a good time I had, how he had been waiting years for this night, how he can't wait to spend the rest of the weekend with me, scum of the fucking earth. Oh, and he makes me take plan B. It's worth mentioning that he folded my clothes from the night before and laid them out like a goddamn display. Fucking psycho. I'm full-blown panic mode and don't know what to do. Still a bit loopy. I ask him if he can get me a toothbrush from the reception, and when he leaves, I flee for dear life. No idea where I'm at, so I Uber to the airport. Call the police. They go to the airport, and I file a report. The police told me it would be my word against his, and that it was weird that I got a hotel room with my uncle. They handed me a crisis hotline number and wished me luck. I was putting myself through college, poor as hell, and didn't have enough money to fly home early. A construction worker saw me crying at the Delta counter and paid for my plane ticket home. He didn't speak English and refused to give me his info to pay him back. I decided right then and there that good things can still happen to me. Mike stole an entire day from me, but he doesn't get to steal my entire life. I got home, got therapy, got my master's degree, got out of the trailer park, and got on with my life. I own a 7-figure business, have been happily married for 3 years to the most amazing, and I think about that construction worker daily. Happy ending. Mostly I still had to deal with the aftermath of this event. All I wanted was me never having to see Mike, interact with him, or deal with him ever again. And for this information to not be spread around unnecessarily. I called one of my other uncles, Alan, whom I trusted, Mike's older brother by 18 years, and told him what happened. Alan was livid. We ride at dawn, kind of livid. He called Mike and Mike confessed. However, Mike blamed the alcohol and said we were both just too drunk. No one gets drunk, tried to fuck a family member, and wakes up boasting about how they planned it for multiple years. Alan tells Mike to get right with God and not to come within 200 miles or speak to any of our family members ever again, or else. 6 months later, everyone is back to being one big happy family and invited Mike to Thanksgiving dinner. I confronted Alan and he apologized and said he felt distraught that the family had been torn apart and wasn't thinking clearly. He called Mike and uninvited him. Recently, I found out that everyone, except for my mom, is still buddy-buddy with Mike, and that everyone knows what happened. Some drunk ex-GF of my cousin texted me saying my family is shitty and that everyone is talking about how I fucked my uncle. And now I have the rage of a scorned woman. The rage in me says that I should stay the fuck away from these worthless hillbilly rednecks who are condoning incest and rape. If I'm honest with myself, my family has quite literally only caused pain and suffering. But I felt like some family is better than no family. Until now. I haven't spoken to anyone, returned texts, calls, nothing. The emotionally intelligent side of me seems to think I should put aside my feelings about the family, still including Mike, to try not to take it personally, and to try to have some empathy for the other family members. Mike is still their family. I get it. My Southern Bible Belt Baptist family likely didn't want to come to terms with the news. God wouldn't let that happen. Or God will teach a lesson, work a miracle, etc. through this. That's typically their stance on sensitive matters. A lot of them, if not most of them, have existing substance abuse issues and also had shitty stuff happen to them. We just don't talk about these things since it's not proper. My biggest conundrum is that I feel so bad that my mom knows about this, and I don't want to make things hard on her since she is really involved with the family. Except for Mike, of course. I have a great relationship with her, see her frequently, and talk to her every day. I can hear that suppressed sadness in her voice when I say I'm not going to XYZ family event. So now I fucking guilty and like I'm being dramatic about the whole ordeal. Aita for cutting ties, please be kind. It's been a long 5 years. I'm doing the best I can. Stories number 6. Aita for not inviting my 15-year-old sister to my birthday party because she dresses too provocatively. I, 17M, am having a big birthday party in a few weeks. It's going to be a mix of friends from school, my girlfriend, and a few family members. My parents are letting me throw it at our house, and I want everything to go smoothly and look good, especially because this is the first time some of these people will be meeting each other. The problem is my sister, 15F. She's recently started dressing in a way that I think is inappropriate. Super short skirts, crop tops, basically stuff that barely covers anything. I'm not trying to control what she wears, but it's gotten to the point where my friends make comments about her, and I really don't want to deal with that at my party. I asked my parents if we could tell her to dress more modestly for the party, or if not, maybe she just shouldn't come. They got really mad at me, saying I was being controlling and rude. My sister overheard, and now she's upset, calling me sexist and saying I'm embarrassed of her. But honestly, I just don't want my friends making weird comments or my girlfriend feeling uncomfortable. My parents are making me feel guilty for even suggesting it, but I just want to have a chill party without drama. Aita for not wanting my sister at my party unless she changes how she dresses. Stories number 7. Aita for telling off a lady in a supermarket after she made the teenage cashier cry. So this happened yesterday, and I'm still wondering if I overreacted. I, 35F, was doing my usual weekly grocery shopping at a local supermarket. It was a busy afternoon, and the line at the checkout was pretty long. I was waiting patiently when I noticed the woman in front of me, probably mid-50s, becoming increasingly agitated as the teenage cashier, who couldn't have been older than 17, was scanning her items. The cashier seemed a bit flustered. I could tell she was probably new, making a few mistakes here and there, but nothing serious. The older woman, however, was not having it. She started muttering under her breath, rolling her eyes, and tapping her foot. Finally, when the cashier accidentally scanned an item twice and needed to call for a supervisor to void it, the woman lost it. She started berating the poor girl, saying things like, "How hard can it be to do this job? You can't even do basic tasks. You're wasting people's time." She just kept going on, and the more she yelled, the more flustered the cashier got until she started tearing up. I stood there for a second, hoping the lady would cool down, but she didn't. The poor cashier was clearly trying her best to keep it together. That's when I stepped in. I said to her, "You don't have the right to treat someone like that. She's doing her best, and it's just a mistake. If you're so unhappy, maybe you should try working like her for a day and see how easy it is." The woman looked stunned and told me to mind my own business. I replied, "It is my business when you're making a kid cry over something as stupid as groceries." The cashier's supervisor had arrived by then and stepped in to handle the situation, and the woman stormed off, still muttering and cursing. After she left, the cashier thanked me with teary eyes, but a couple of people behind me in line gave me looks like I was the one who had done something wrong. Now I'm second-guessing myself. Stories number 8. Aita for telling my daughter that her child cannot take care of the baby. I am a mother of 6 beautiful women and a grandmother of 23, 7 granddaughters and 16 grandsons. I was at my second oldest daughter's house, Kaya, and the newborn baby boy was crying. She had asked her only daughter, who is 16, to get the baby. The baby has colic and it's terrible. I asked my granddaughter if her mom always makes her get the baby, and she told me yes. She also mentioned that the baby sleeps in her room and wakes up every hour, and she's the one who gets the baby. When I asked Kaya about this, she said that she does it because she needs sleep. I told her that the baby is her child, but she insisted that she still needs to sleep. I asked my other daughters if they made their oldest daughters or sons take care of the youngest, and they said yes. I never made my girls take care of one another when they were younger, aside from occasional help. I told them that they needed to take care of the baby themselves. Aita for doing this or no? I kind of feel guilty and disappointed in myself for doing this. Stories number 9. Aita for threatening to call CPS on a client for the way she treated her daughter. I need to know if I'm being a Karen or not. I've been a hairstylist for over a decade. Not that any of that matters, but I am the owner of a small beauty salon with 4 other employees. Working in any industry with the public has its moments. We have had clients scream at us, demean us. We even had a customer run out the door and not pay last month. This weekend, on Saturday morning, we had a woman and her daughter come for a walk-in. The girl had just started kindergarten last month, from what the mom was saying. She looked like she was in her late 20s. The daughter had long hair and wanted a trim. I explained to the mother that it would be a 20-minute wait. She seemed annoyed the whole time and was sitting in the waiting area texting while her daughter was trying to speak to her. She was ignoring her. As it came time to get haircut, the mother was saying to the daughter, "I don't know if you should get a haircut. You wanted it so bad today, so I guess we have to." Nothing super abnormal. So the haircut ends, and Steph, another hairstylist, blow dries her hair and finishes it. The daughter looks so happy, and the mother starts causing a scene. She goes and touches her hair and screams, "It's all uneven, it's so bad," and argues with Steph until I walk in and tell her to calm down and explain. I explained how she doesn't have to pay or anything and it's okay. I'd rather not deal with it. The daughter looked so uncomfortable to begin with. I didn't think it was badly done, but the mother had some issues with it. Even though it was pretty much a trim, she snatches her daughter, walks out. Then in the parking lot, I hear her screaming at her daughter outside of her car. "Your hair looks ridiculous. You were the one who wanted this haircut. Everybody in school is going to make fun of you. You just had to get it cut today and not wait." The little girl looked so mortified and upset, and I walked out and said to stop screaming at that poor girl. She screamed at her and yanked her arm to get in the car, and I took down her license plate and said I was going to call. Stories number 10. Aita for refusing to eat anything my in-laws cook and getting my girlfriend to do the same. I 24M date 26F for just over 3 years now. At the beginning of the relationship, I quickly realized that literally everyone in her family is a terrible cook. And I really do mean terrible, like actually dreadful. I never told her this and never tried to influence her to think this. She herself never thought much of it, and in general liked sharing meals with her family. I always avoided those family meals like the plague. Luckily at the time, I was a student and could just use that as an excuse, which I did, with 100% of them. That did eventually lead to some attrition with her family, but nothing too major, mainly because GF was finally very happy in a relationship and they didn't want to ruin that for her. At the end of our first year together, I asked her to move in with me, which she did about 2 weeks later. Her family wasn't very happy about it, but still supportive in general because she was happy. But this is when things started going downhill, fast. When she started living with me, I started cooking for her. Our arrangement was I take care of all the cooking and kitchen-related chores, and she does the rest, which was a fair deal considering our apartment. Up to that point, I had never cooked for her proper. At most, I had made her some cookies or a cake. But now, I was cooking for her 3 freshly made meals every day, 7 days a week. I'm a pretty good cook. I did formally train to be one, and do eventually want to work in the field. I eased her into it. We come from the same cultural background, so I started with some of our cultural classics. And she loved it, and slowly but surely started getting the same conclusion I had, that her family were very shitty cooks. Again, I never really voiced that to her, until one day she asked me if that was why I always avoided her family meals, which I was honest and said yes. The problem really started around this time. She started herself avoiding those family meals when she got invited, which she did every single weekend. She always gave her parents some reason to not go at all, or to arrive late only to play cards and hang out after everyone had already eaten. In the occasions we did go, she would have me make lunch beforehand. We would eat and get there late to avoid the food. This started to really get into her mother, aunt, and grandmother's nerves, who are the 3 main cooks of the family, which led to several smaller arguments over the last 2 years. Then, about 1 week ago, the whole thing blew up in everyone's face. There was an important event that we had to attend, not really much way to avoid it. Luckily, or so we thought, it was a potluck, and everyone was bringing something, so my GF asked me to make something that could be eaten as a full meal just by itself. So I made a very hearty, rustic, potato lasagna to take for the event, but it really just crashed down on everyone when her mother started to go off on her in front of everyone once she realized GF was only eating my dish. The whole event devolved into a grilling of my GF for becoming a snob and me for breaking apart the family. GF is fully on my side and thinks her family is being unreasonable. Her family is still going off on her a week later, to the point she hasn't touched her phone during the entire weekend. Aita, stories number 11. Aita for calling off my wedding because my fiancé wanted to invite her ex. My fiancé wanted to invite an ex to our wedding. From what I know, he was a organ who always put her down and told her that he was the best she could ever do. Naturally, I asked her, why the hell does she want him at our wedding? She said she wanted to shove it in his face that she did amazingly for herself, and she got someone way better. While I appreciated the compliment, I asked her, Are you really so hung up on him that you're gonna make our wedding about him? Honestly, once I said it, it was like someone else told me. I didn't even realize what I was saying, and I didn't even understand it until I said it. I told her that she shouldn't bother to invite him because we weren't getting married anymore. She was stunned, and eventually apologized and told me to forget about her ex. I felt angry and almost told her she's the one who needs to forget about him. IDK. She spent the day telling me that she's sorry for bringing it up. I'll be honest, I'm even reconsidering the entire relationship now. Update. So we are going to try some premarital counseling first. Our wedding has gone from being called off to being postponed indefinitely. My fiancée tried to explain why she wanted to invite her ex, but not only did she keep changing her answers, each one made it way worse for me. First, she tried to explain that she just wanted some payback. I told her. And if he doesn't care? Are you gonna rub in his face, our first child, our first home? She said she didn't mean it that way, and she just wanted to prove her worth, which I then told her that I guess her ex is the only one who can determine her worth. We kept going like this for a while, and there wasn't a single answer she gave that didn't boil down to she cares what her ex thinks, and apparently she can't be happy unless her ex felt some sort of way. She denied it, but honestly I find hard to believe her. I don't want our marriage to be only worth something if her ex is the only one who can determine it. I refuse to be with someone whose happiness revolves their ex's feelings. I decided to at least try some counseling. We have been together for years now. FYI, she was with her ex for about 2 years. 3 years later, she met me, and we have been together for 4. I figured I should try. So at least I can say I tried stories number 12 Aita for blowing up on my nephew after he borrowed my computer without asking and moved it to his room. So here's the deal. I have a gaming computer, a really nice one that I saved up for years to build. It's not just my work machine, it's my pride and joy. I keep it in my office, and I treat it like a sacred space. Okay? Yesterday I came home from work, and the first thing I notice is that my computer is gone. Like poof. I freak out naturally. I check downstairs, I check every possible corner of the house, and I'm about to lose it when I finally find it in my nephew's room. I ask him what the heck is going on, and he tells me he just borrowed it to play Fortnite with his friends. I'm livid. I had no idea he was even in my office, let alone moving my extremely expensive setup without any permission. I told him he better come and move it back right now. I honestly thought I was going to have a heart attack just looking at my precious rig sitting on his desk like it's some cheap IKEA furniture. When I confronted him, he rolled his eyes and said, "It's just a computer. Chill out. Are you kidding me?" I'm raging. I can't believe the audacity of this kid. I laid down some strict rules about respecting other people's things, and you'd think he would have at least a shred of common sense to ask first, right? Long story short, I told him I was done with him treating my stuff like it was a toy from a dollar store, and now my sister is mad at me for blowing up at him. I'm seriously considering not letting him use it ever again. Aita for getting angry and blowing up at my nephew for this. Stories number 13 Aita for not inviting my sister to my wedding after she publicly criticized my fiancé. My fiancé, 28M, and I, 26F, have been together for 4 years and recently got engaged. We're planning a small, intimate wedding with just close friends and family. My sister, 30F, has always been blunt, but I never expected her to take it this far. A few months ago, during a family gathering, my sister got into a heated argument with my fiancé over something trivial, whether or not pineapple belongs on pizza. It escalated, and she ended up making rude comments about his character, calling him weak and saying he wasn't good enough for me. I thought it would blow over, but a few days later, my sister posted on Facebook, writing about how she's worried I'm marrying a man who has no backbone and that I deserve better. She didn't name him directly, but it was obvious who she meant. Friends and family started reaching out, asking what was going on. It was humiliating. When I confronted her, she refused to apologize and said she was just being honest. She even had the audacity to say I should thank her for opening my eyes. Fast forward to now. Our wedding is approaching, and my fiancé feels uncomfortable having her there. I decided not to invite her, and now it's causing a huge rift in the family. My parents are upset, saying that my sister is still family and should be there. My sister, of course, thinks I'm overreacting and choosing him over family. She's been texting me non-stop, saying she was just looking out for me, but I feel like if she really cared, she would have handled things differently. So Aita for not inviting her to the wedding? Stories number 14. IH for not inviting my coworker to our weekly game night. Even HR is involved now. So I've been hosting a weekly board game night with some friends and coworkers for a while now. It started out super chill, just a fun way to blow off some steam after work. Snacks, drinks, and a lot of laughter around the table. Pretty soon, it became this thing everyone looked forward to. A few months ago, my coworker Jake caught wind of our little tradition and asked if he could join. At the time, he seemed cool, and since we were looking to mix things up a bit with new faces, I figured, why not? Big mistake. At first, it wasn't too bad, but after the first couple of game nights, things got intense. Jake turned out to be way more competitive than any of us. He takes every game super seriously, constantly correcting people on rules or telling us how we could be playing more efficiently. What used to be fun and laid back turned into this high-pressure thing where no one felt comfortable making a move without him jumping in with his expert advice. In team-based games, he basically tries to act like the captain, telling everyone what to do and criticizing decisions. I've seen people get visibly uncomfortable or frustrated when he goes on these long rants about why we lost or how someone messed up. It's exhausting. When he wins, he gloats for way too long, and when he loses, he'll sulk and mutter stuff like, "That wasn't fair," or "This game is so imbalanced." Like, dude, it's just for fun. But it's clear he doesn't see it that way. He's killed the vibe so many times that a few of my regulars have asked me privately if Jake would be there before deciding if they wanted to come. And honestly, I can't blame them. So last week, I didn't invite Jake. I kept it to our core group, and everyone had a blast. It was like old times, no tension, just a good time. But of course, word got back to Jake, because apparently one of my coworkers can't keep their mouth shut, and now he's been giving me the cold shoulder at work. He even confronted me about it, asking why he wasn't invited, and I tried to downplay it, saying we kept it small that night. Then, things took a weird turn. I got an email from HR the other day. Apparently, Jake filed a complaint, saying he feels excluded from activities that involve coworkers. And now HR wants to have a meeting to talk about it. I was completely caught off guard. I mean, it's a private game night at my house. How is this an HR issue? To make matters worse, Jake even talked to our boss, saying it's affecting his morale and workplace relationships. Now my boss and HR want to have this big, team-building conversation about it later this week. I'm seriously stressed about how much this has spiraled. It's just a game night. Now I'm wondering if I handled this wrong. Should I have talked to Jake about how his behavior was making things less fun? Or am I justified in wanting to keep things low-key and enjoyable for the rest of the group? All this nonsense now begs the questions. Aita for not inviting him to game night anymore? And how do I even handle this HR mess? Stories number 15. Aita. For not telling my partner I bled in the bed. I have been with my partner for 5 years, and we have been living together for about 5 months. This morning, I got my monthly while we were sleeping in bed. I noticed at 4 a.m., so I got up to clean myself up a bit, then got back in bed until 7. It was just a little bit that had gotten into the bed. Luckily, I caught it quick. When my partner got out of bed a few hours later, I pulled the sheets off the bed and put them in the washing machine right away. I then told him what happened. He was disgusted. He is upset that I didn't wake him to tell him I had bled in the bed. I told him it was just a little bit, and by the time I got back out of bed at 7, the few drops had dried. He thinks it's disgusting that I let him roll around in it. Am I the asshole for not waking him? I honestly did not think it was a deal, but I don't want to be disgusting. Stories number 16. Aita, for tricking my seal into stealing our baby name. Throwaway for obvious reasons. So I, 33F, have been married to my husband Kevin, 35M, for 5 years. We have a 3-year-old daughter, and I'm currently pregnant with twins, M and F. My L. Terrence, 38M, has been married to his wife Jess, 39F, for 7 years. Jess and I are total opposites. Jess is an extrovert, she's kind of loud, boisterous, and some would even say abrasive. I'm an introvert. I'm not quiet or shy, but I am reserved. I'm also very observant. The first time I met Jess, I told Kevin that we would be like oil and water. We have never been overtly hostile towards each other, but also have never gone out of our way to bond. Unfortunately, Terrence and Jess had fertility issues for several years, before finally having their son a couple weeks ago. Prior to this, Jess was very odd towards us when I was pregnant with our daughter. The best way to describe it is hot and cold. One minute she pretended like she didn't care while we were talking about it at family gatherings. The next, she was volunteering to throw the baby shower. I gave a firm no to that. We both assumed the behavior was because of their fertility issues and didn't think too much of it. But the strangest thing she did was almost demand to know what we were naming our daughter before we announced it. She asked us constantly after our gender reveal and got visibly annoyed when we just laughed her off and said it was a secret. We couldn't understand why the hell she cared so much, as she was not expecting at this time. Regardless, we didn't share the name with anyone. When our daughter was born and her name was finally announced, Jess was kind of obsessed with it. I decay how to explain it. She just kept going on and on about how beautiful and unique it was. To this day, she comments about how different it is. The name we chose is a pretty common Welsh name, which wouldn't be all that different, except for the fact that we are African American. Lol. I've always gravitated towards names from different regions, and found and fell in love with the name years ago, and never shared it with anyone prior to Kevin. Fast forward to both of us being pregnant at the same time. Jess's odd behavior continued towards me, but this time it was more blatant. Snarky comments under the guise of jokes about how big I was going to get with 2 babies, and that my body would never snap back like it did after our daughter. She even accused us of getting pregnant on purpose after she announced her own pregnancy, even though the whole family knew we were actively trying, and at the time of her announcement, I was already a few weeks along and didn't know. One thing about me, introvert or not, I'm no pushover and will stand up for myself. But I chose to ignore Jess because I knew that would get to her more than confronting her would, since she seems to thrive off drama. Jess was obviously much further along than we are. However, we did have our gender reveal prior to Jess giving birth. And right on cue, the baby name interrogation started again. Because they decided not to find out the gender of their baby in advance, Jess kept hounding us for both of the names we had already picked out. But again, we declined to answer. After days of this, I got annoyed and asked Kevin if he thought the reason for her insistence was so she could use the name first since she was due first. He kinda chuckled until he realized I was serious and said he didn't think so, but that anything was possible. As I said, let's test it. We were due to host my Phil's birthday at our house a couple weeks later, and I decided to leave something in the unfinished nursery with a girl and boy name on it and see if Jess went snooping. Because Kevin thought it was silly, he said he would give me $20 if she did it. So I went on to some site where you can order custom name wall decals and put in the names Aria Rose and Sebastian Ali. These are names that we like, but aren't remotely close to what we chose. This will also be our last pregnancy, so even if Jess did use them, we wouldn't care. I didn't complete the order. I got to the final page and then printed it out and hid it in a dresser drawer in the nursery. The party goes off, but because we were busy hosting, we never noticed if Jess disappeared for any extended monthly of time. When I went into the nursery the next morning, nothing was out of place, and the order sheet was still in the exact location. So we both just went, welp, and forgot about it. I did, however, notice that Jess never asked us about the names again. Then, Jess gives birth. We went to the hospital to give our congrats. When we go in and see the baby, I asked what his name was, and man, I cannot properly explain the shit-eating grin that came over Jess's face as she says, Sebastian Ali. I mean, she was really proud of herself, and honestly, it's the most vindictive I have ever seen her look in the years I've known her. But instead of reacting how she was expecting, I put on a performance like I had graduated from Juilliard. That's such a great name. He's so cute. Look at his waddle face. Oh, I just love him so much. Welcome to the world, Sebastian. Auntie is gonna spoil you rotten. I mean, I am laying it on thick without an ounce of bother. The range of emotions on Jess's face went from shock to confusion to rage in a span of maybe 17 seconds. Meanwhile, my husband is holding in the laugh of the century. We later say our goodbyes, and he gives me a 20 in the elevator while almost crying laughing. All I could say was, like I thought. This was 2 weeks ago, and we haven't seen them since, because we wanted to give them time to settle in with the new baby. I have heard from my Mael that Jess doesn't seem as thrilled about motherhood as she thought she would be, considering how long it took them to conceive, but said it might just be baby blues. Obviously, I think she's just disappointed that her petty move didn't have the desired effect on us. I did share this with my sister, and while she laughed initially, she did say it was kind of an move. So, Aita? Edit. For those asking my daughter's name, I put it in the comments, but I'll put it here too, as I don't mind sharing now. Her name is Carys, and I too stole it. From Michael Douglas and Catherine Zeta-Jones, lol. I think it's a gorgeous name, and more people should use it. Update. Hey y'all, thanks for the responses to my original post. The comments were funnier than I was expecting, and kept me and my husband pretty entertained. I tried to respond to as many as I could before they got away from me. I've gotten some messages asking for an update, but nothing major has really happened. Jess didn't break into my house to push me down the steps and steal my kid, lol. I did get some additional info, though, that I can pass along. Before I get to that, I want to give a little context about my relationship with Jess to explain why I did what I did. Feel free to skip past it. To put it plainly, Jess and I have been in a one-sided beef since the day Kevin and I started dating. I give her zero thought if I don't have to, and yet I live rent-free in her mind. Based on snide comments she's made over the years, the reason why is jealousy. Kevin and I dated for only a year before we got engaged. We then were married within 6 months of that engagement. We had an actual wedding with a ceremony and reception, went on a honeymoon, bought a house in the burbs, and got pregnant in rapid succession. Both of us have good careers and are financially stable. MIL, Phil, and GMIL all adore me. There is a churchy reason behind this that I will spare you on. Jess and Terrence did not have a similar path. They had been on and off since they were 19-20, with Terrence never really wanting to commit. During one of their breaks, Terrence got a FWB pregnant and now has an 11-year son. This has always been a sore subject with Jess due to her fertility struggles, fibroids. When they finally got back together, she pressed him for marriage until he relented and gave her a shut-up ring. They went to the courthouse on a random Tuesday, then had dinner at Red Lobster afterwards and went back to work the next day. Not trying to be shady, just relaying the facts. They now live in a 2BR apartment in a HCOL city while working hourly jobs. They aren't minimum wage or anything, but constantly need OT to make ends meet. This has led her to resent me over the years. She thinks everything has come easily to me and has let that fester. There was a time a few years ago at a gathering where she got drunk and got into an argument with Terrence. I think her attitude that night stemmed from seeing me with my infant daughter. To hurt him, she blurted out that she married the wrong brother. Everyone was shocked. I wasn't. She just said the quiet part out loud and revealed what I already knew. So I poked her a little and said, "Really, which one? That's kinda gross since both were minors when you met them." Context: Kevin and Terrence also have a younger brother, Tim, 28. Boy, did she fly off the handle after that, lol. To this day, she claims to have no memory of that night. Anyway, now I know there's a new reason why she resents me. The update. Like I said, nothing has really happened since I last posted. I haven't seen or heard from Jess since that day in the hospital. Terrence also hasn't communicated much with Kevin other than sports talk. However, my MIL has been with them almost every day. She came over yesterday to go over some last-minute things for our baby shower that we are having the Saturday after Halloween. I am not due till late January, but with the holidays and twins tending to arrive early, we just wanted to get it out of the way. Anyway, after finalizing some things, I asked Mael how Terrence and Jess were doing. She sighed and leaned back in her chair and said, "Girl, it's a mess." She goes on a long word vomit that I will have to summarize. Basically, they've been at it since before the baby was born. When they were discussing names, Jess's list only consisted of girl names. When Terrence asked what if it's a boy, Jess was adamant that it wouldn't be, but if it was, they would just use Terrence Jr. This caused an argument because Terrence's 11-year-old is not named after him and it would be petty to name the second son a junior. Unbeknownst to me, Jess was having severe anxiety over not the name, but the gender of their baby. So much so that she refused to find out early because she was afraid of disappointment and she wanted to enjoy her pregnancy, believing she was having a girl. She really wanted a girl. I mean, really wanted a girl. This goes back to Mael Imo. Mael is the only girl of 4 brothers. She had 3 boys. 2 of her 3 boys, Tim has a 6-year-old, have boys. Then my daughter came along. Mael actually broke down in tears at our gender reveal. Since the day she was born, Mil has become a little obsessed with her, lol. Not in a JML way. She knows and respects boundaries, but the whole family is aware that my daughter is Mil's favorite person in the world. I think Jess thought that by having a girl she would get that same attention and affection from Mil, as she has never been Jess's biggest fan. When that didn't happen, something short-circuited in her head. Mil's words, not mine. Before we arrived at the hospital that day, they were still fighting over a name. So I guess when I showed up, she just blurted it out. While I still think it was to hurt me, it seems like it was also because she didn't allow herself to think of anything else because she didn't want a boy. I said in the first post how I noticed her expression. However, I completely failed to notice Terrence's. He was pissed. Jess had never mentioned that name to him prior, and he had no clue where it even came from. He also hated it. He refused to sign off on that, and they left the hospital without a name. In our state, you only have 7 days from birth to register a name. She eventually told Terrence to pick the name himself, and that she didn't care anymore. So he did. He swapped out Sebastian for Jordan, but kept Ali. Yes, after Michael and Mohammed lol. According to MIL, since they've been home, Jess has shut down emotionally. She's been doing all the motherly things, but there's a disconnect there. Mael said she finally broke down to her a few nights ago that she'll likely never have a daughter due to her age and what it took to get pregnant in the first place. I think that will bring them closer together, since MIL never got the daughter she wanted either. I also felt bad hearing that, because regardless of how I feel about her as a person, I do have a heart. I would never want to punch down on her if she's in the throes of PPD. Jess still hasn't admitted to snooping, so I haven't admitted to setting her up. A few comments said I should never confess, but I think I will at some point. Mainly because I don't care lol. I am more than willing to burn a bridge while I am still standing on it. But now simply isn't the time. So that's it. That's the lackluster update. Jess is invited to my baby shower, so I might be back in a couple weeks, depending on how that shakes out. Stories number 17, Aita for refusing to babysit my sister's kids after she let them destroy my apartment. I, 26F, live in a small one-bedroom apartment. I'm very neat and take pride in keeping my space clean and organized. My sister Laura, 32F, has 3 kids ages 6, 4, and 2. She's always asking me to babysit, and while I love my nieces and nephews, I rarely have time to help since I work full-time and am also studying for my master's degree. Last month, Laura begged me to watch the kids for a few hours because she had an emergency at work. I was hesitant, but she promised they'd be on their best behavior, so I agreed. Big mistake. Within 30 minutes of them arriving, my apartment was chaos. The 6-year-old spilled juice all over my couch, the 4-year-old broke a lamp trying to catch a fly, and the 2-year-old thought it would be fun to throw my books off the shelf. I tried to keep calm, but it was a complete disaster. By the time Laura came to pick them up 4 hours later, my apartment looked like a tornado had hit it. She barely apologized, just said, "Kids will be kids," and left. I was fuming. It took me hours to clean everything up, and the lamp they broke was a gift from my grandmother that had sentimental value. The next day, I told Laura that I wouldn't be babysitting for her again unless she made sure the kids were under control. She got defensive, saying I was overreacting and that I don't understand what it's like to be a mom. She's now angry at me for refusing to help family, and some of our relatives are siding with her, saying I should lighten up. I feel bad because I know she's a single mom and could really use the help, but I also don't think it's fair to let her kids trash my place and then act like it's no big deal. I didn't even ask her to replace the lamp because I know she's strapped for cash, but her lack of accountability is frustrating. Aita for refusing to babysit her kids again. Stories number 18, Aita for bringing up just how much I actually do for our household to my wife. Can't believe I actually have a reason to post something on Reddit, but here I am. My wife, 41F, and I, 42M, have been married for 15 years. I apparently surprised her by being capable of doing household chores and tasks, which I didn't think much of. My mom always asked me to help out with chores when I was a kid, so I didn't think it was beneath me or anything. I do think I inherited her need to clean excessively, like it's so bad that I can't eat until a mess is dealt with. My mom is an amazing cook, my aunt was a literal chef at a fancy hotel, and my dad loved having barbecues. It was pretty natural to learn from them and pick up a thing or two. The only thing I didn't pick up was how to make a decent cup of tea or coffee. I'm genuinely awful at it. It got to a point where I was handling most of the household chores and taking care of cooking, which I prefer anyways since she comes home exhausted. I've been asking our children, 11F and 9M, to do some minor tasks around the house and hopefully teach them this sort of thing too. She has a group of friends who hang out regularly. This time it was her turn to host the group at her home. I offered to take our children out for the day, and it was all set. Before we left, I had to finish up some things for work. The office space is practically on top of our living room, so I could hear what they were talking about the entire time. One of the friends asked how she always kept our house so spotless, and my wife just bragged about how she was responsible for it all. Then they all started talking about their gripes with their marriages. A common theme was how unhelpful their spouses were. I felt pretty uncomfortable, so I just left the office and went out with the kids. I came back after they had left for the night and acted as normal until we got to our bedroom. I asked her what was up with that conversation they had and pointed out that I did the cooking and cleaning in our marriage. She told me not to take it personally and that she just wanted to fit in with the struggles of her friends. Now I just feel unappreciated. especially since I don't clearly remember any genuine gratitude for what I do from her. Since then, she's been pretty short with me. She says I'm weaponizing what I'm doing against her and holding it over her head. I don't expect her to compliment me each time I clean or defend me religiously, just a little. My husband is pretty helpful actually. He does his share would be nice. I can't help but feel like her friends think I'm some sort of deadbeat who comes home to relax and neglect her. Stories number 19. For clarification, I am white Russian who immigrated from Russia. I grew up in a predominantly Hispanic, Black, and Asian community when I came to America when I was 5. All my friends growing up would make jokes about me being white and an immigrant, and I would make similar jokes about their race/heritage, and it was all jokes between us. Recently, I have moved for college and have made a new group of friends who consist of mostly white, Asian, some Hispanic. The non-white members of the group have tended to call me a cracker and honky. A lot which I didn't take to heart because I grew up with similar name-calling. Because it's all a joke to me. One gathering as of recent, there was similar name-calling by one of the Hispanic members of the group, and they even made jokes about me being Russian. So I made a joke back as I was used to with my high school friends, and I quote, "Chimichanga chomper." As soon as the words leave my mouth, I immediately get an angry response from the group. Later on, I was told that some of the members do not want to hang out with me anymore because I am a racist weirdo and found my comment extremely offensive. And I quote, "You're white, you can't say that stuff." While I do get not all groups of people find similar jokes funny, I feel I am not fully wrong because they made similar jokes to me. Aita Reddit, group of friends called me a racist weirdo for making a joke that I can't say because I'm white, despite them making similar jokes to me. Stories number 20. Aita, for calling my elderly neighbor a selfish prick after he threatened me over his late-night piano playing. I, 22F, am at my wit's end with my upstairs neighbor, 65M. For the past 3 months, he's been playing his piano loudly every single night from 11 p.m. to 5 a.m. It started occasionally, but now it's a nightly occurrence. I've tried everything. Politely asking him to stop, leaving a kind note explaining my situation, even offering to buy him headphones. His response? "This is my creative time. Deal with it or move out." Last night, I reached my breaking point. After another sleepless night, I confronted him in the hallway. I begged him to reconsider, explaining that I'm falling asleep at work and my mental health is suffering. He got in my face and said, "Listen here, you little brat. I've lived here for 30 years. If you can't handle a little music, I'll make your life hell. Try complaining again and you'll regret it." I lost it. I called him a selfish old prick and told him to go f himself. Now he's telling everyone in the building that I'm an abusive, disrespectful youth. Other neighbors are annoyed too, but they're afraid to confront him. The landlord says he can't do anything without multiple complaints. Aita for snapping at him? Should I apologize? Or should I start the process of filing a formal noise complaint, even though he threatened me? Stories number 21. Aita, for telling my brothers I won't be the one, be our mom's caretaker. I'm one of 3 boys. I'm 35, brothers are 26 and 23. It started when the 26-year-old asked who was going to take care of our mom when she's nearing her end of life. I stayed quiet because I have an extremely strained relationship with our mom. When I was 14, my mom cheated on my dad with his best friend, and she kicked him out of her house that she inherited from my grandparents. She was a drug addict, had her car repossessed, couldn't pay her bills, so I was doing homework in candlelight and taking cold showers, got beat one time because I found her drugs and flushed it down the toilet in front of her. My junior and senior year, she was dating different guys, leaving at night when we were all asleep, and then coming home in the morning after I was awake, getting ready for school and getting my brothers up ready for school. She would always say I had to run to the store real quick, but I would be awake in the middle of the night when she would leave. My mom is clean now, but she's a functioning alcoholic. She put my dad into massive credit card debt, leading up to their split due to her drug problems. Neither of my parents have a retirement. They don't have any savings. My mom still works at 65 years old. She's a hairdresser. She is going to have to continue working up until her arms and legs won't let her anymore. My brothers have this extremely rose-tinted glasses for their childhood. They thought it was amazing. They remember me always hanging out with them, letting them sleep in my room, playing video games, taking them to get lunch and stuff. They didn't see all of the stuff that was going on with our mom because they were too young. They know about everything now, but they don't hold the same resentment for our mom that I do. Because of my strained relationship with my mom, I got a vasectomy. My wife and I don't want kids because we don't want another life to be our responsibility. I've had my fair share of raising kids with my brothers. So, when I finally told them we don't have any obligation to take care of our parents, they made their decisions and have to deal with them, and if they can't financially take care of themselves, that's their problem. I even said, whoever wants to move in with mom and take care of her, they can have the house after she dies. I will help by taking her to the grocery store, making sure she has things she needs, but I won't take care of her. They called me cold and selfish, and that they knew I didn't have that caretaker mentality. I love my brothers. They are two of the most important people in the world to me, but our mom has been exhausting to have in my life. Am I the asshole because I refuse to take care of my mom when she needs end-of-life care? This post is long, and I feel like I jumped all over the place. I'm sorry. Update: I sent my brothers this text to tell me I don't have that caretaker instinct when I took care of you guys growing up. Even after I moved out, I bought you guys school clothes and stuff. I was there while mom was off fucking around in the middle of the night. I was there taking care of you when you woke up crying because mom wasn't home, and I sat with you while you fell back asleep. I woke you guys up in the mornings to help you guys get ready for school. I stayed with you guys while mom and sissy were doing drugs. I watched you over weekends. I fed you lunches and dinners. I let you guys sleep in my room when we didn't have power because mom couldn't afford the electric bill. I was the only one with a car in the family, and I took you guys to and from school while also dropping mom off at work and picking her up while going to college and working. I did my part in taking care of her. I helped raise you guys, but you don't see it that way because you were too young. I had to grow up way too fast. So please don't make me feel guilty because I don't want to be mom's caretaker when I feel like I did my part when I was younger, taking care of you guys for her. If it was either of you needing caretaking, that's a different story. I parented you guys growing up. I was there a lot when our parents weren't. I love you guys, and I don't hold you guys responsible, and I would do it all over again if I needed to. This was the 26-year-old's response. I am not trying to make you feel guilty, and wasn't trying to say you didn't take care of us. I shouldn't have said you don't have the caretaker instinct. I was thinking of it in a parental aspect, since you literally said you don't have a kid, because you don't want responsibility for anyone else. I wasn't trying to make it sound like you didn't take care of us. And they left it at that. I'm going to stand my ground. I think I'll also have this conversation with my mom to let her know. My 23-year-old brother is her favorite and perfect son. He has the best relationship with her and still lives with her. He said he's already accepted he's probably the one who is going to take care of her. But the next time the three of us are in the same place, we will sit down and have a real conversation about why I won't be the caretaker, but I'm willing to talk about other solutions. Thank you all to the amazing responses. I probably will seek out therapy. I've never heard of parentification and probably do have a lot of things I need to work out. Thank you all. Stories number 22. My mom, 52F, called me 28F. Selfish over an incident that happened when I was teenager. Aita, or is she? I, 28F, was visiting my mom this weekend and I turned a video on while we crafted Smosh's new Reddit video. One of the first videos they cover is on the story of a mother losing her daughter's Louis Vuitton bag. We listened to it and I said it sounded similar to the phone incident when I was younger. My mom got really defensive, said that I was selfish as a teenager and I am acting selfish now. We argued for a bit and she said, I wonder what Reddit would think of our story. So I decided to find out. For my 15th birthday, my grandpa sent me a new smartphone in the mail. I was incredibly excited about it, and my mom was really upset. She said that it was inappropriate for me to have a more upgraded phone than she did. He sent me the newer version of the phone she had, and that there was no way she was going to let me have the phone. So, instead of transferring my SIM card to my new phone, she went and transferred hers to the new phone and mine to her phone. Her argument was that I still had a newer phone than my previous one, so I should be grateful. But given the new smartphone had been a gift, I was really upset and called my grandpa, her dad, to complain. He then called her and chewed her out for it, which made her yell at me for involving him. She said again, there was no reason for me to have such an upgraded phone when I only used it to talk to my friends, and she used her phone for work. Our argument went on for over a week before I just dropped it, but I was bitter for a long time. She continued to bring up how unbelievably selfish I had acted, and that she was disappointed to have raised such a selfish daughter. Every once in a while, especially at family gatherings, this story will be brought up by someone, and the argument starts all over. My brother, 17 at the time, and my dad stayed neutral on it, and my grandpa was pissed but lived in another country and couldn't do much but call my mom like he did. That's the story. My mom called me selfish again when I brought it up and said that my continued bitterness towards this event just goes to show how ungrateful, entitled that I am. No matter how many times I tell her that what she did was pretty messed up. So, who is the AH? Edit. The intention was always to show the verdict of this post to my mom, since it was her idea to see what Reddit would think. I texted her and asked her if there was anything she'd like to add before I forwarded the post to her, and just got this back. As I have said, it was not appropriate for a girl of your age to have a more capable smartphone if you weren't going to use it for anything other than texting your friends. Your grandpa did not ask me, before sending the phone to you. I told you that you could not have the phone and you continued to ask for it, so I gave you my old one as compromise, which was a newer and nicer phone than the one you had, and you still continued to ask for the newer one, even after I said no. I maintain that your behavior was that of a selfish teenager, and I think any moms on Reddit will agree with me. Hopefully your post puts an end to this argument. I will add that she said this weekend, this was before Instagram, what would you have used the phone for? The new phone in question was a Samsung Galaxy 2. My mom had the Samsung Galaxy 1, and I had a Nokia slider phone before my grandpa sent me the new one. Stories number 23. Aita, for taking back my expensive gift after my brother re-gifted it to his girlfriend. For my brother's birthday, I bought him a really expensive watch that he'd been talking about for months. It was a Tissot PRX with blue dial which runs for about $725. It took me a while to save up for it, and I was excited to surprise him with it. He seemed happy when he got it, but a few weeks later, I noticed that he wasn't wearing it. When I asked him about it, he awkwardly admitted that he gave the watch to his girlfriend because she liked it more. It's one thing if she wears it sometimes, but completely re-gifting it did not sit right with me. I was shocked and honestly hurt. I put a lot of thought into that gift, and it wasn't cheap. So I asked for the watch back, saying that if he didn't want it, I'd rather return it or keep it for myself. He got mad and said it's rude to ask for a gift back and that his girlfriend should be able to enjoy it. Now my family is involved, and my brother is calling me petty for taking back the gift. Aita for not letting him re-gift my present to someone else? Edit. Alright, I've decided to let my brother, or his girlfriend I guess, keep the watch. I'm still upset about the whole situation because it feels like my gift didn't mean anything to him. But at this point, I'd rather not create more drama in the family over it. Just gonna move on, but yeah, still kinda stings. He's definitely getting that $25 McDonald's gift card next. Appreciate everyone's feedback. Stories number 24. ITA for wearing white socks, even though it's my teacher's pet peeve. I have 16 go to an all-girls school. In this school we have a uniform, but our rule book does not specify what color socks to wear. It specifies that if we wear stockings or tights, that they must be navy blue or black, but there is no similar specific color for socks. It simply mentions plain and unpatroned, and they mustn't be ankle socks. I normally wear a pair of navy blue socks with my skirt, but on this specific occasion, they had gone to the laundry and were still in the dryer when I was leaving school. I decided to wear white socks instead of my usual navy blue and opted for trousers as it was winter. I did this for a few days and this was no problem. However, whilst I was walking past a teacher, let's call her Mrs. J, my trousers may have lifted a bit, exposing my socks. Mrs. J is not a nice lady. She teaches us things like making love, ed, and does all the anti-bullying and the say no to drugs talks. I dislike this woman because she is rude, homophobic, and dismissive of opinions different to her own. Not to mention she goes out of her way to hand out detentions or in school isolations. She's a very unpopular and miserable woman. She stopped me in the hallway and demanded I take off my socks because they were not within dress code and had to be black or blue. I informed her that I had read the rule book and it did not specify any color, but just that they had to be a neutral color and unpatroned. She told me that it wasn't about the rules, but that white socks triggered her, and that I had to take them off. I told her politely that I would have a pair of navy blue socks for tomorrow, but that I was unwilling to wear my school shoes without socks as I had at least 4 to 6 hours, roughly, more of school left, and asked her to let me off just this once, and apologized. She told me I was being cheeky and dismissive of things that made her overwhelmed. Keep in mind that this is the same woman who got multiple complaints made against her because that demanded an autistic girl take off her noise-canceling headphones because it was rude to wear headphones inside. I saw red, and this is where I was in the wrong, that she must be a very bored woman if my socks were such a big concern to her. She began telling me off, asking why other teachers hadn't disciplined me too, which I said, maybe they're just not obsessed with my feet. She gave me a detention. I went to my head of year to explain the situation, and she said that I should have complied with the request, but agreed that it was unfair for her to ask me to remove my socks because they triggered her. Now, I have a meeting with the headmistress to discuss socks, which I find crazy BW. I understand that I was rude, but is it fair of her to try and bend the rules for her own comfort? Stories number 25 for being mad at my mum for letting my cousins use and then fuck up my laptop. I 16 was out on a Saturday when my mum decided to let my little cousins come over and use my laptop without asking for my permission. I had no idea they were coming, and I would have said no if she had checked with me first. While I was out, she left them unsupervised with my laptop, and they ended up downloading a dangerous virus that completely crashed it. When I got home, I discovered what had happened and was furious. I confronted my mum about it, and we ended up getting into a heated argument. I feel like she should have respected my property and asked for my permission before letting them use it. Now my laptop is broken, and I'm stuck dealing with the consequences. Stories number 26 Aita for telling my ex-wife to stop trying to reach out to people she thinks I am dating. Edit and update. I do appreciate the responses. I would like to clear things up, since it seems a lot of people feel the need to comment on my care plan and my way of informing my ex-wife about the plan. I will try to keep it brief. I told my ex the way I did, because I was not going to change my mind. I know she was excited to have children and start a family, as was I. But life had different plans. In the end, I was not going to try and change her mind because that is not my place. She wanted a family, so be it. I divorced her so she could be free to do so. My plan to care for my mother has worked out great. I have some family that helps. She has Medicaid, and I take whatever services and home care hours they give. She attends social adult day paid through Medicaid. She gets 30 hours a week of home care hours, so I use those 5 days a week. If I need more, I either ask my family or pay for care I found on care.com. I have many plans in place. My mother is doing well. It has been a great honor to be in a position where I can care for my mother. Can I afford to go on expensive vacations like in the past, multiple times a year? Not really, but that is fine because I get to spend time with my mother, close friends and family on a daily basis. The reason I got upset was because she reached out to people via LinkedIn. I probably would have just laughed it off if it was just Facebook, but trying to reach out to contacts on LinkedIn is weird. I have blocked her, and I do hope that solves this. I divorced her so she could be free. She did not sign up to be a caregiver, and I respected that. I was 100% okay with being a caregiver, and I am glad I did so. My time with my mom will be limited, but I am glad I have this time to be an active part of her long goodbye instead of a passive one. I get many people have their reasons for placement, and I am not here to argue the pros and cons. Everyone does what is right for them. For me, placement was not an option in our family. We help one another. Had this been her parents, I would have suggested the something. My belief of marriage is when you are married, you combine both families across the board. Their problems become our problems, and vice versa. The post was about her actions, not our divorce or my plan of care for my mother. I have her medical team if I require input on that subject. Thanks. Around 5 years ago, my wife and I divorced because I made the commitment to care for my mother who had dementia, and she progressed and refused to place her. I told my ex my plan. She disagreed, asked me to choose between her or my mother. I served her papers a week later. If it matters, my plan was to put our family plans on hold. She goes back to work, and I will use my income after expenses and time to cover her care. Yes, she was going to move in with us, but I did make it clear she would not be responsible for her care. We split everything 50-50, except the house, because that was mine before marriage. She got a year's worth of spousal support, because at the time she was not working, because at that time we planned to start a family. But my mom got worse. She was capable of working, and because we had no kids, she was awarded limited support. So it appears she has reached out to people she thinks I am dating via social media. A friend of mine who she reached out told me about it. So I reached out to my ex and told her off. She acts like it is her duty to warn people that I am a mama's boy. Aita? In hindsight, I felt maybe I should have just ignored it. I agree I could have handled my mother's situations better, but our family has always cared for our elders in the home with family support. I did not ask or expect her to get physically involved. No, I am not dating. Between work and my mom, my hands are full, and that is fine by me. Just don't like that she is randomly reaching out to contents via social media like Facebook and LinkedIn. Stories number 27. Aita for slamming the door in a TV license officer's face after he threatened me. For anyone not from the UK, we have this weird system where you have to pay a TV license fee if you watch live TV or use BBC iPlayer. If you don't, you're supposed to be exempt. However, they still send TV license officers to check if you're telling the truth. And these people can be very persistent. So the other day, I get a knock at the door, and it's one of these TV license officers. I already knew what he was there for, so I politely told him I didn't need a license. He immediately got snarky, saying, "Everyone says that until they get fined £1,000. Are you sure you want to lie to me?" At this point, I'm fuming, but I stay calm and tell him again that I don't watch live TV or BBC iPlayer. He starts going off, saying things like, "We can check your address, and if you're lying, we'll take you to court." He kept trying to push his way in, asking if he could come inside to confirm I wasn't watching live TV. I told him flat out, "You're not coming in, and you need to leave." He smirked and goes, "That's what guilty people say. I'll be back, and next time there will be consequences." That was the last straw. I slammed the door in his face, and I could hear him shouting through the door about how I'd regret it. Now my spouse thinks I escalated the situation and that I should have just talked to the guy to avoid any issues later. But honestly, who the hell does he think he is, coming to my house and threatening me like that? Aita for slamming the door and refusing to let him in? Or was I justified in standing my ground against this power-tripping officer? Stories number 28. Aita for not showing my stepmom any respect. My dad and stepmom tried for years to have a child, but failed. Eventually my dad, who desperately wanted a child, cheated on my stepmom, which resulted in me M43. A few months after I was born, stepmom finally got pregnant with my brother, M42. When I was 11, my mom passed away, and I had to live with dad. Stepmom very clearly hated my presence and favored her son. Because of this, we never got along. The problem is that dad and stepmom are old, and they need someone to take care of them. They can no longer live alone. My brother is a useless, spoiled, pathetic creature who can't even take care of himself and his family, so that was never an option. I would never let my dad go to a nursing home, and I knew he would in no circumstances agree to be separated from his wife, so I agreed to take care of them both. The problem is that my daughter and my brother's son hate each other, and I myself am not very fond of my brother, so they are not welcome around us. Now, my brother and I are not the issue. He works at night, and I work in the morning, so he can come and visit his mom in the morning. But his son and my daughter are both in high school and have the same schedule. Because of this, his son can't visit. So stepmom came up with the brilliant idea that once a week my daughter should leave the house for a few hours so that my nephew can visit. My daughter told her that she has a better idea. How about you live in the street, next to the trash, where you belong, and then you can see your precious son and grandson whenever you want. My stepmom got mad and demanded an apology. I told her that her useless paws of a son is not the one taking care of her, I am. So she needs to respect me and my rules. And she needs to learn how to talk to my child, because if she ever talks to her like that again, I won't be this nice. She started to cry when I was talking and decided to remain in their room that day. My dad thinks I was being an asshole. She took care of you when you were little, show her some respect. That's what he says. Stories number 29. Aita for telling my coworker not to buy his girlfriend an expensive engagement ring. My 28F coworker, Robert, 30M, is getting engaged to his longtime girlfriend Sally, 26F, in the near future. I've been working with Robert for almost 5 years now, and we've developed a close friendship. He's good friends with my husband, and we all regularly hang out. He started dating Sally 3 years ago, and while I've tried to connect with her, we are just two different people and have completely different interests, so he often hangs out with us without her. He has been planning his engagement for a few months, and he showed me the ring he plans on buying for Sally a few weeks ago. She insisted on one particular ring, and it was her dream, which is a 1.5 pear cut diamond ring, from Tiffany's. While the ring is absolutely beautiful, he told me it was going to run him about $50K. For reference, his salary is around $60K where we work. He told me he was going to finance it and probably sell a few things to afford a larger down payment. While I fully support him and Sally, and while I understand this is Sally's dream ring, I told him it was crazy of him for buying a $50K ring on his salary, especially if he hasn't already saved up for it. A year ago, he wouldn't even buy a car worth more than $20K, so to me it made 0 cents to pay for a diamond ring worth double the car. Anyways, I told him that Sally could have that exact same ring that wasn't Tiffany's for a lot cheaper, and that even though he loves her, that maybe it's something they should discuss. Because going that much in debt before a huge wedding, and we're talking 200 people sized, per what he says she's wanting, is not a great way to start of their marriage. He agreed, and even told me he was relieved to have someone else think it was a little crazy. As all her friends have insisted that if it's not that exact ring, she will not say yes. Well, that night I got a text from Sally telling me not to speak to Robert anymore, and that I crossed a major boundary. She started spouting off all this stuff about how inappropriate our relationship is because men and women can't really be just friends. Despite me being married, he was at my wedding. Now Robert isn't talking to me, and while my husband agrees that the ring price is crazy, that I probably shouldn't have said anything and let him make his own decision. Aita? I often think Robert is railroaded by Sally and just didn't want him to make a very unwise financial decision that would only affect him in the end. Edit, I need to clarify that I do think they are in love and both committed to marriage. I just think she's a bit naive about how the world works and is sometimes insecure about it. I really didn't want this to turn into a dog pile of calling women mean names. Sorry, stories number 30 Aita, for going off on my pregnant Sil after repeatedly being disrespected and ignored by her. My boyfriend M30 and I, F25, had just gotten married in May of this year after being together for 5 years. For context, my now husband's family has an interesting history and dynamic. I'd describe them as very multicultural and diverse. My FIL is Black, Arab mixed, and my MIL is White, Persian mixed. As a result, their extended families are spread around the world. My husband has 3 more siblings, an elder brother and 2 younger brothers. I am not sure if this is important, but I am Asian. So my husband was studying in my home country, which is how we met. He has also lived and worked in my country for the past 4 years. It's safe to say he's made his permanent home here. Because of the dynamics of his family, I rarely get to meet them because they all live in different countries. During our 5-year relationship, I barely met his parents 2 to 3 times and never met his older brother and his wife. On the other hand, I see his younger brothers frequently because they are currently studying in my native country, and we are really close. Fast forward to May of this year, when my now husband and I chose to get married in my home country. All of his family flew here to attend the wedding, and I met my husband's older brother and his wife for the first time. The first awkward incident with my Sil occurred when I went to the airport with my husband to pick her and my BL up a few days before our wedding. When we first met, I extended my hand for a handshake, expecting a full, strong handshake, to my Sil, and she literally just used the tip of her fingers to touch my hands. I don't know how to describe it, but it's like when you don't really want to touch someone's hand during a handshake. Following that, she walked right past me and hugged my husband. On the other side, my BIL is really welcoming and thrilled to finally meet me. He hugged me and said, "It's great to finally meet you." His warmth made me forget about my Sil's rudeness, and we moved on. In the days leading up to the wedding, my Sil makes subtle remarks about the wedding, criticizing every element we choose, from the flowers to my wedding dress. For everyone's information, I come from a financially secure family that owns a business. My parents supported half of the wedding costs, while the other half was covered by myself and my husband. My husband is a doctor, and I work as an engineer. One thing that frustrates me is how my CL keeps telling me how fortunate I am to have a wealthy family to mooch off from, and I'm sure do throwing a lot of tantrums at my parents, given how enormous and luxurious the wedding is. But it's always so subtle that it wouldn't start a fight but enough to make me uncomfortable. For background, my BIL and SIL are also both financially well off. My husband's family was similarly financially comfortable to begin with. My BIL is an accountant, and my SIL occupies a management position in a company. She is also a lifestyle influencer with quite a large following on Instagram, and they live in Dubai. You know how expensive the city is. Fast forward to September of this year, my husband and I received an invitation from my BIL and SIL for a gender reveal party and baby shower in October, which occurred a few days ago. We were ecstatic and decided to book our flights to Dubai immediately after receiving the invitation. For your information, there will be 2 separate events, a gender reveal party for BIL, SIL, and their respective families, acquaintances, and a baby shower for my SIL and her female family members and acquaintances the following day. I was invited to both parties, and I was supposed to attend the baby shower without my husband, which I believe was a nice opportunity to bond with my SIL. But then, my SIL contacted my husband one day before the gender reveal party and informed him that I was not invited to the baby shower. The reason is that she does not want me to draw attention away from her during the event. My husband and I were plainly perplexed as to how and why would I be diverting attention away from her. And her reason is that no one knows or has ever met me, so they will ask, and she does not want to spend time explaining who I am to her guests. Because my husband and I do not want to cause unnecessary drama. We just agreed that I will only attend the gender reveal party with him. On the day of the gender reveal party, I went with my husband, and my SIL did not speak with me at all or even recognize my presence. I tried to make small chat to congratulate her, but she just blew me off each time. My BIL, on the other hand, is as friendly as ever, thankfully. When the party appeared to be coming to an end, I went out to the car to get the gift I had purchased, apparently for the baby shower. But because I would not be attending the baby shower the next day, I decided to give it to her that day. During that time, the guest began to leave, and when I handed her the gift, she screamed at me loudly. The first thing she said was, "Don't you have manners?" I was clearly taken aback and bewildered. She then accused me of attempting to assert dominance by flaunting my wealth and rubbing it in her face, as well as looking down at her. For those who are curious about the present I bought, I purchased a baby blanket and sleeping bag from Dior, and the present is in the Dior shopping bag. I felt humiliated after being screamed at, and my blood was boiling at the time. I yelled back in rage, asking her what I did wrong to deserve to be treated so disrespectfully by her. I said that her insecurities were not my responsibility, and that if she despised me that much, she should not have invited me in the first place. She appears stunned by my words and begins crying. Both my husband and BIL rushed towards us to calm us down. My husband suggested that we leave, as well as some guests had already begun to leave. It happened 3 days ago, and since then everything has been quiet. Nobody said anything, and now I feel horrible for yelling at a pregnant woman. Stories number 31. My fiancé, 21F, was invited to a friend's party, but I'm not welcome there. So a few months back, my fiancé said she was going to a party. I trust her wholeheartedly, but I'm very offended that they told her not to bring me. This party is in 3 days, and I had her ask if I could come again. Still a no. Turns out her friend thought I was weird when I met them once and was made uncomfortable. Now I don't recall doing anything to warrant that. I may be socially awkward, but that's no reason to not get to know me. In fact, my awkwardness is one of my biggest insecurities, and it hurt quite a bit that my fiancé was fine with them being like that toward me and didn't stand up for me. I hate being excluded. It hurts a lot. I decay what to do. I'm just walking a fine line and trying to be understanding about it. Sorry if this is a mess. I'm very upset about this matter. Thanks in advance for any advice. Just to clarify, I have told her I don't want her to go. She also feels bad about it but hasn't said anything to her friends to back me up here. Stories number 32. Aita, for telling her she's wrong and asking her to leave. First of all, thank you guys for all the comments on the first post. They gave me a lot of perspective and helped me deal with everything that happened these past 2 months. And secondly, sorry for the long post. It covers a lot of ground and some touchy subject, so this your official warning. So she called me about a week after my post here. Before that phone call, she had blocked me on everything. And I mean everything. Facebook, Twitter, Insta, freaking Tumblr. She had been thorough enough that I was sure it was over. So when she called me at 3 a.m., to say I was shocked would be an understatement. Weary, worn out, and still waking up, I asked her what was going on. She began by apologizing for how she had acted, telling me it was wrong and that she didn't mean it. Attributing it to stress and PMS, I know it can be bad, so I gave her credence here. Maybe because I was still half asleep, or maybe because I still yearned to reconcile, I accepted her apology. In the moment, it felt genuine. It felt like there was actual regret in her words and pain behind saying them. But then I found out why she needed to say that, why the pain was actually there. She told me she was behind on rent, still groggy. I semi-casually asked how much. Not too much, just around $6,000. I was silent, shocked, horrified at the revelation I made even before she asked. I wasn't her friend. I wasn't her friend at all. I was a wallet, a gullible, gentle, downtrodden little purse to be pulled from when she needed it. And my blood started boiling like a kettle forgotten on a cast iron stove, a fire churning away inside it. So I hate to ask. Before she could even finish, I detonated. I was livid. I was furious in a way I hadn't experienced in over a decade. I became venomous, letting out some rather choice daggers hidden deep in the closet that I knew would hurt because I was gone, replaced with only unyielding rage and absolute fervor. I stopped when I heard her sobbing, and I just sat there. Phone on my ear, head on my hand, throat burning from the fury I had just let loose. Churning through all our memories together, every moment being analyzed. Realizing just how many times I had been the friend who paid, the butt of her jokes, the jester dancing before her ladyship. It hurt. It still hurts, come to think of it. But she proceeded to, through sharp inhales and overt tears, start telling me about how hard everything had been for her with the bills and work and trying, and the you just don't get it. Every excuse, every out, like a child who was scolded for stealing treats from the cabinets. After a while, it all finally just boiled down to a, I really need the money. Now here's the thing, she had blocked me on everything, but her boyfriend hadn't. And the things I saw in that past week sunk the final nail in our friendship's coffin. The $600 trip to El Gaucho? The drive to British Columbia? The new Gucci handbag? She thought I didn't know about those. But oh, I did. And so the fury returned anew, like the coals of an engine's furnace under the bellows breathe. I brought up everything from that last week, knowing full well they, her BF and her, had blown at least $2,000. Asking her why she didn't spend that money on rent, and how she got 3 months behind in the first place. I told her to ask her boyfriend, her family. I may have said someone who actually gives a f. I was just done. Finally snapped awake from a nightmare of my own creation, my willful ignorance so painfully easy to see with the clarity of betrayal. And thus the tears started again, but at that point I was done, my well of empathy finally exhausted. I just hung up the phone, blocked her number, and went back to bed. I'd love to say that's where it ended. A nice little bow to tie things off. But no, that's where it started. Messages from her family, her friends, her boyfriend's family. The woe unto me, for I know not what I've done act. The endless stream of annoyance and pestering from all fronts. I let these acts persist for around 2 weeks before it finally escalated to a place I couldn't control. I need to preface this part some. We have never and would never have had any kind of intimacy in that regard. And I am an SA victim myself. I would never force myself onto anyone. Ever. So you can imagine my surprise when I got a nice knock on the door from our friendly neighborhood police department and detained for a possible SA charge. She had lied to the cops to get me thrown in prison. I guess that was the final blow in her now raging vendetta against me. But I guess that somewhere along the way, she forgot that just because she deletes things, it doesn't mean that I do. And I consented to everything the police asked for, gave them every password, samples, fingerprints, maps, history, tracking data. I let them access it all. With the amount of info I willingly gave them, they could make a perfect clone of me, down to scars, past trauma, and search history. Armed with all of that information, I was released in 2 days. Apparently they were going to keep me under investigation, but otherwise, I was free to leave. Coincidentally, she suddenly stopped showing up in her boyfriend's post, and her family started complaining about the corrupt justice system, so I think there may have been some retaliatory action on the part of our PD. So there. That's part of why I held off on saying anything beforehand. As of yesterday, I am no longer being investigated, so I hope I never have to deal with her or any of those people ever again. This should be the last update on this one. Thank you all for your time, advice, and care. Also, side note, I did get a noise complaint for losing my cool, so that sucks. But otherwise things are okay on that front. Stories number 33, Aita for telling my friend it's not my responsibility to take care of his kid. I, 26. Work at the school district as teacher assistant in an elementary school. My male friend, 26M, works as construction worker. His girlfriend, 29F, is stay-at-home mom. Their daughter, 4F, goes to preschool. Let's call them David, Olivia, Lily for privacy reasons. November 17th, it's David and Olivia anniversary. David is planning surprised whole-day date for Olivia. David asked me to babysit Lily for the whole day, from 7 a.m. through midnight. When I told him I would, although he has to pay me $40, he got mad. He said I'm being selfish, reminding me we have known each other since 5th grade and all the favors he has done for me. I told him I appreciate all the favors. However, I also reminded him I work Monday, Friday, 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. The weekends are my only day off. He said I should be doing it for free because the state already pays me to take care of kids. When I told him I won't watch Lily for free because she's not my responsibility to tell his parents or Olivia parents to watch Lily instead. He called me H. He said he'll never talk to me again. Stories number 34. Am I the asshole for not telling my girlfriend that my extended family on my mom's side is Asian? My girlfriend, 17F, and me, 17, have been dating for about a year, so we agreed that it was time for her to meet my extended family, since she's only met my parents and siblings so far. However, this is where it gets complicated. You see, both my parents are white, but my mom was adopted by an Asian couple when she was very young, so those people and their families are considered to be my mom's side of the family. However, I didn't really think that any of that mattered, so I didn't tell her ahead of time. A few days ago, we drove 4 hours to have her met them for the first. When my mom's family greeted us, I noticed that my girlfriend suddenly got really nervous and shy, even though she was perfectly fine around my dad's family, who are all white. Around 30 minutes in, she claims she isn't feeling well and nudged me to leave with her. In the car, she started going off on me, babbling on about how strict and traditional Asians were about marriage and dating, on how I should have given her heads up. She also said that if she had stayed, they would have made her eat super spicy food, and it would have destroyed her bowels. I got pretty annoyed by the stereotypes she was suggesting, and calmly told her that while I was sorry for causing her stress, she should be assuming things just because of their race and should give them a fair chance. She got even madder and claimed that they weren't stereotypes, they were facts, and demanded that I stop the car, saying that she was going to call an Uber and she was tired of my bullshit. Later, her parents called me and apologized for her comments, but said they would like me to have more transparency with her next time I'm base. Now I'm stuck, not knowing what to do. She's been avoiding me at school, not responding to my texts and calls, and is overall just ghosting me, and I fear she might break up with me soon. I agree that yes, maybe I should have been more transparent with her. Still, I don't see myself being in the wrong here, and I'm also pretty upset at her for not giving them a fair chance. My mom's family is really nice, non-judgmental, and allows me and my mom to love whoever we want. Still, IDK, I'm just really lost here and need some guidance. So, am I the asshole? Or is she taking things too far? Edit, thanks to encouragement from others, I decided to break up with my girlfriend. It breaks my heart, but I realize that can't be with someone who judges without giving them a fair chance. Stories number 35. Aita, for being mad at my husband for leaving me with the baby. I had a work event that is at a fun pop cultural festival. I have known since before my baby was born that I'd be there this year for 4 days. It's basically the biggest event of the year for me with my career path. We'd hoped my mom would be able to watch the baby so my husband could attend the event and look around, but she ended up being unavailable. So it was left to him to watch our 4-month-old this weekend. For once. Literally the first time ever. Our pediatrician said it would be okay for us to bring the baby to the event, and I said, well, as long as you're the one taking care of him, you can take my extra badge and attend. Because I am extremely busy at this event. The first 2 days he did it, he came in each day, and it was nice having them there when they weren't browsing the show floor. Edit, to be clear, he completely took care of the baby this whole time. The third day is the busiest day, so I asked him to stay home. After all, he'd had 2 days to look around. He basically wheedles me until I say fine, you can come in, whatever. He gets there with the baby at the busiest point of the day for me and says he wants to get food. I ask him to get me something too. Then he gets up and leaves my table while I'm interacting with a customer. And he leaves the baby with me. Done. After a bit the baby starts fussing. I text my husband to come back ASAP, then full on crying. He's hungry, he needs a diaper change. Meanwhile my husband is gone and my table is completely mobbed with people trying to buy stuff and talk to me. I have to leave my table to take care of the baby. This is an issue because 1, I lose out on a bunch of money, 2, I look very unprofessional and honestly stressed out and unhappy, on the verge of tears, and that is not the image I want to project. 3, the only stipulation of him coming to the show was that he be the one to watch the baby. He comes back after I send him a string of angry texts and says he made a mistake by leaving the baby with me. Did he forget he had a baby? And doesn't actually apologize. I am furious. He then seems annoyed at me that I am rightfully mad. The last day of the show he didn't attend. Anyway, that was 2 days ago, and he's been acting sullen, but I don't even care. I'm still mad at him, and even more so that he's having a hissy fit, because I am disappointed in him. We have been in a quiet state of resentment ever since. So Aita? Does the fact that he adequately cared of the baby the other days make up for him massively dropping the ball? Am I wrong for only focusing on what he did wrong? Stories number 36. Aita for telling my sister I hooked up with her fiancé and ruining her engagement, even though she took him back. I, 19F, come from a super religious family where everyone marries fast through matchmakers. I'm the black sheep because I left religion and started dating casually. My sister Marie, 25F, is the family favorite, beautiful, smart, outgoing, but she struggled to find a husband. After a string of failed matches, she finally got engaged last month to Christopher, 30M. Everyone was relieved because she'd been trying for so long. I was happy for her until I met the fiancé. Christopher and I hooked up last year. For context, the age gap between us isn't the issue, so please don't bring it up. We met at a party, and despite being religious, he's divorced and didn't seem concerned about staying pure. We hooked up 5 times. He was my first everything. Kiss, hook up, all of it. After the 5th time, he said he was falling for me, but I wasn't looking for anything serious, so I ended things before it got too complicated. Especially because I knew he wanted to eventually get remarried, and I was not the girl for that. We hadn't seen each other since, until Marie brought him home as her fiancé. The second we locked eyes, I knew we were both thinking, oh shit. Later that night, Christopher pulled me aside, begging me not to tell Marie. He said it meant nothing, it was in the past, and telling her would only ruin her happiness. He texted and called me for a week, saying how much Marie had been through and how I'd destroy her life if I told her. I kept my mouth shut at first. I didn't want to hurt her, but the guilt was eating me alive, like I was watching her walk into a disaster. I felt like she deserved to know. So I told her. At first, Marie didn't believe me. She said I was trying to sabotage her happiness because I couldn't stand being single. I had to show her the texts and photos to prove it. When she finally accepted the truth, she lost it. She confronted Christopher, and he denied everything, until she shoved the evidence in his face. Marie called off the engagement. That's when things really hit the fan. My parents and some relatives told me I should have kept quiet. They said I'd ruined Marie's one shot at happiness and called me selfish for interfering. Now I'm not even invited to the wedding. Yep, they got back together, but I'll get to that. It gets worse. While Marie and Christopher were dating, he randomly called me, saying he wanted to reconnect. He was rather vague, but it was obviously a booty call. I didn't know he was dating at the time, and definitely didn't know he was dating my sister. I let him down firmly, and didn't engage because I had no interest. After telling Marie about our hookup, I mentioned this call because I thought she should know he wasn't as faithful while they were dating as she thought he was. But that backfired, spectacularly. Marie accused me of making up lies to tear them apart. Christopher denied everything and said I was obsessed with him. Marie sided with him and called me, quote, a desperate home-wrecking whore. Since I deleted my call history, I had no proof. It became a he said, she said situation, and Marie believed him. Now, Marie and Christopher are back together, and they're getting married. She showed up at my apartment a few weeks after the fight, crying. Apparently, Christopher convinced her that what happened between us was just a meaningless mistake, and that it made him realize how much he wanted to be with her. I tried to explain that he had told me he was falling for me, not to make it seem like he still liked me, just to show her he's lying to her about what he felt for me. But she just got angrier and called me a jealous liar and some other pretty names I won't repeat before storming out. Now I'm completely cut off from family events. My parents say I've caused enough damage, and extended family members are calling me a slut both behind my back and to my face. Every attempt I've made to explain myself has been shut down. So yeah, they're getting married anyway. And here I am, wondering if I just blew up her engagement for nothing. Should I have just stayed quiet? Did I do the right thing? Or did I just ruin my relationship with my family for no reason? Stories number 37. Aita for wanting my boyfriend, 23M, to end his relationship with his girl best friend, 22F. My boyfriend, 23M, and I, 23F, have been together for 3 years now. He has a girl best friend, 22F, from university that he now works with. They spend a lot of time together, both at work and after work. I was fine with it, but now I feel left out and alone. They were friends before we met, so I didn't think much about it in the beginning because I have guy friends. She also has a boyfriend, so what should I be worried about? But when I see them spend more time together and plan fun activities that we never do, I get very jealous. They are also being called work wife, work husband at work, and That doesn't sit right with me. We have argued about this many times, but he doesn't seem to understand. But now to the event that happened this weekend. I worked a night shift, and I felt something was weird because he always texted me, "Good night," so I just thought that he fell asleep. But then I saw the girl post a picture of 2 glasses of wine, lit candles, and a puzzle. So I put 2 and 2 together, and I asked him where he was. He was with her in the middle of the night, having in my eyes a date. I really don't know how to handle this situation. I told him that I never wanted to see her or them together again or we break up. Is that fair in this situation, or am I just overreacting? Stories number 38, Aita for telling my mom to stop saying I'm my dad's new wife. I have always been close with my mom, but not so much with my dad. When I was younger, I always saw him as the very strict parent. I have now come to realize that it was just my mom, always degrading him and making him out as the bad guy. Since then, I've always tried to do things for my dad, such as buying him birthday presents and Father's Day presents, repaying him when he buys expensive things for me and my sister, and asking if he wants lilies from the shop. I do these things with my mom too, but the reactions to things are quite opposite from my dad's reactions. For example, if I bought an expensive present for my dad, my mom would say things like, "So you spend so much money on your dad, but never get anything for me," or, "Where's my present?" I'd respond to her saying that I bought her an Apple Watch for her birthday and buying her jeweler, but it's like it isn't enough for her. Recently, Father's Day came around, and I and my sister gifted my dad some new shirts. He was very appreciative and liked them very much and has been wearing them often. But my mom keeps saying now, "You're the new wife. Go clean the house, new wife. Where's my clean laundry, new wife?" And it's physically making me sick when she says those types of things. I've tried talking to her about these comments, but she never wants to listen. She either storms off or starts yelling at me for being manipulated by him. Also, some context for the next paragraph. My mom has refused to speak to my dad for almost a year now because he told her off for taking money out of his account without asking. She hasn't apologized for doing this and says my dad has to apologize. I don't exactly remember what happened, but one day my dad told me to go ask my mom something, and when I went to go tell my mom, she went off at me. "Why are you speaking to me? Get your father to come speak to me." Go tell your father he has to speak to me now. This is a regular occurrence where my parents would tell me to tell the other parent stuff because they won't speak to each other. He's my husband, he should be speaking to me. At that point, I had enough and told my mom to either listen to what I have to say, or to take herself to go speak to my dad. I was no longer going to be their little messenger bird. She then got upset with me saying I was being manipulated by him and going against her. I said to her, "No, I'm not being manipulated. I'm just sick and tired of you saying stupid things like, 'I'm the new wife.' Stop saying disgusting things like that." After saying that, she was upset and didn't speak to me for a couple of hours. Later on, she came into my room and acted like nothing ever happened. So Reddit. Aita for telling my mom off. Stories number 39, Aita for inviting my father to visit, but not his wife. Posting on a throwaway, in case any one of my family happens to see this. My wife and I recently invited my father to visit me and my family. We live in New England and he lives in the Pacific Northwest. We have visited him at his house several times, but he has never visited us at our home. We thought it would be a great opportunity for him to spend some time with his grandchildren and to just get away and relax. We are well off financially, and I even offered to pay for his ticket, an offer he gladly accepted. However, we didn't invite his wife. I never refer to her as my stepmother because they were in an affair for several years before he divorced my mother and married her. Because of this, she will always be the other woman to me. And I, and many of my other family members, have never accepted her into our lives. She's nice enough, but because of the history, we only tolerate her because of my father. I made a point of not even extending the invitation to visit, much less offering to pay for her ticket. I have no real interest in having her around and would prefer to spend my time only with my father. I also want my kids to spend time only with him. She loves them as if they were her own grandkids and would love to see them, but I have never really been comfortable that either because she is only related by marriage. My wife agrees with me totally on this. I've heard that she really hurt by this and my father is feeling guilty about leaving her behind. Was I wrong in not even inviting her? Stories number 40. Aita for telling my best friend she was being a buzzkill during my birthday dinner. I, 22F, had a birthday dinner a few nights ago with some close friends to celebrate turning 22. One of my best friends, 23F, has been going through a tough time because she recently lost her job and has been stressed out about money. I've been there for her a lot lately, trying to help her out emotionally, and even gave her some money to help with bills. At the dinner, everything was going well at first, but my friend kept bringing up how terrible her life was and how stressed she felt. I get that she's struggling, but it was my birthday, and I just wanted a positive vibe. Everyone tried to cheer her up, but it just felt like she was dampening the mood, and it started to bring the whole table down. Eventually, I pulled her aside and told her that I really wanted to have a good time for my birthday, and I felt like she was being a bit of a buzzkill by constantly talking about her problems. She got upset, left early, and now isn't talking to me. Some of my other friends think I should have just let it slide, but I feel like it wasn't the right time for that energy. Aita for saying something and not just letting her vent. Stories number 41. Aita for breaking up with my girlfriend because she became a stripper without telling me. I 20M and was dating my girlfriend, 21F, for 4 years. Things were going well, and we were even talking about moving in together soon. We seemed to be on the same page about a lot of things. Recently, she started acting distant and secretive. I didn't think much of it at first, but eventually one of our mutual friends told me she started stripping a couple of months ago. I had no idea. She never mentioned it to me. When I asked her about it, she admitted it was true and said she didn't tell me because she didn't think it was important. She said it was just for extra money and that she liked doing it. I told her I felt blindsided and that I wished she had been upfront about it. For me, it wasn't just about her being a stripper, but the fact she hid something major from me for months. It felt like a huge breach of trust, so I broke up with her. She got mad, said I was being controlling, and that it's her choice what she does with her body. Her friends are now calling me sexist, saying I had no right to feel betrayed. But honestly, I know I made the right choice. It wasn't about the job, it was about trust and communication. If she can hide something like this, who knows what else could have been kept from me in the future. Stories number 42. Aita for pressing charges on my husband. I recently discovered that my husband had been cheating on me while we were still together, although we were physically separated at the time. The woman he cheated with revealed that he has hepatitis C, something he never disclosed to me. I had left him a few months ago because his behavior had become erratic. He would get upset over minor things, like me moving furniture in our room, which would lead to arguments where he would yell, invade my personal space, and act aggressively. This pattern of behavior had been happening for a while and gradually escalated. One specific incident stands out. I asked him something and ran to the bathroom to avoid a confrontation. I locked the door, but he managed to break in, started yelling, and proceeded to punch himself. I comforted him despite his behavior. This cycle kept repeating. He would throw things, push me, pin me to the bed, or break my belongings, then cry and beg me not to leave, and I would end up comforting him. On our honeymoon, he grabbed my wrist so tightly that it left bruises. I was crying and begging him to let me go, but he refused. Later, while driving to Utah, the violence escalated. He took my phone so I couldn't call for help and began driving recklessly, intentionally speeding and slamming on the brakes while I wasn't wearing a seatbelt. I have a heart condition, and when I told him my chest was tightening, he ignored me. After separating for a month and a half, we were still communicating daily. During this time, he repeatedly logged into my email accounts and others synced with it, despite my requests for him to stop. I warned him that I was going to file for a restraining order if he didn't log out, but he continued to access my accounts for weeks. The police have been unable to serve him the restraining order, so I decided to press charges for our unauthorized access to my accounts. In our last conversation, he blamed me for his actions, saying I was the cause of his behavior. His ex-wife had also filed a restraining order against him, citing similar behavior, and he has driven 4 hours to find me before. Am I wrong for pressing charges on him to protect myself? Stories number 43. Aita for asking to be left alone and crying after my friends destroyed a birthday gift. On my birthday, my dad got me a bracelet I had been asking for. It was a $25-ish bracelet, along with a few other things. On that day, I decided to wear it, and my friend, who we will call M, asked to see it. M was with the rest of the friend group. M showed it to the others R, H, and J. For context, R and I were dating at the time. They then decided to run down the street with it. We are all 16 and 18-ish, and they were playing keep away. In the process, it snapped in half, and all the beads fell off of it. I was sad and asked to be left alone and went to a nearby coffee place, got some coffee and sat down. I started crying because I really did like the bracelet. They found me and told me I was overreacting and then gaslit me by saying I was having a good time and laughing. I once again said I wanted to be left alone, and they said to go to another table, even though I was already there before any of them. A few hours later, R called me to say they were breaking up with me because of my baby tantrum. Then the rest of the group agreed and said I was an asshole who didn't deserve them as friends. H later told me I should just craft a new one or forget about it because it wasn't that pretty anyway. The bracelet was handmade and would be hard to get a replica. Stories number 44. Aita, for telling off a lady in a supermarket after she made the teenage cashier cry. So this happened yesterday, and I'm still wondering if I overreacted. I, 35F, was doing my usual weekly grocery shopping at a local supermarket. It was a busy afternoon, and the line at the checkout was pretty long. I was waiting patiently when I noticed the woman in front of me, probably mid-50s, becoming increasingly agitated as the teenage cashier, who couldn't have been older than 17, was scanning her items. The cashier seemed a bit flustered. I could tell she was probably new, making a few mistakes here and there, but nothing serious. The older woman, however, was not having it. She started muttering under her breath, rolling her eyes, and tapping her foot. Finally, when the cashier accidentally scanned an item twice and needed to call for a supervisor to void it, the woman lost it. She started berating the poor girl, saying things like, "How hard can it be to do this job? You can't even do basic tasks. You're wasting people's time." She just kept going on, and the more she yelled, the more flustered the cashier got until she started tearing up. I stood there for a second, hoping the lady would cool down, but she didn't. The poor cashier was clearly trying her best to keep it together. That's when I stepped in. I said to her, "You don't have the right to treat someone like that. She's doing her best, and it's just a mistake. If you're so unhappy, maybe you should try working like her for a day and see how easy it is." The woman looked stunned and told me to mind my own business. I replied, "It is my business when you're making a kid cry over something as stupid as groceries." The cashier's supervisor had arrived by then and stepped in to handle the situation, and the woman stormed off, still muttering and cursing. After she left, the cashier thanked me with teary eyes, but a couple of people behind me in line gave me looks like I was the one who had done something wrong. Now I'm second-guessing myself. So Reddit? Aita for telling her off? Oh my gosh. Wow. I'm honestly overwhelmed by all the support and kind comments. Thank you all so much for reassuring me that I did the right thing. Reading through all the love for the cashier made me realize just how many people care about situations like this, and it has really restored my faith in humanity. So I've decided that tomorrow, I'm going to go back to the store and see if she will be working. I want to let her know that she's got a whole community of love cheering her on and even show her a few of the comments to lift her spirits. I'll update you all if I get the chance to chat with her. Once again, thank you all so much from the bottom of my heart. Stories number 45. Girlfriend, 23F, did something that really hurt me. And I have proof, but I went through her phone to find said proof. How do I approach the conversation? Advice needed. So, some days ago I went through my GF messages because she was being suspicious. And, to be fair, I'm really insecure. She was texting a guy, and normally she tells me about every new chat with every new person, because she likes to tell me about those conversations. The day before going through her messages, I saw said chat, and she didn't mention it, quickly closing the app. Later that day, I saw it pop up again, and when I asked her, she avoided the question. This, and seeing a heart emoji in the last message she had sent, was what led me to investigate further. Turns out the guy was an old FWB of hers. He had a new account, and she had reached out to him to ask him about it. To not give too many details about what came next, it seems like the last time they were in contact, before we started dating, they tried to hook up a lot, and they were never able to do so. They had a 4-ish hour conversation about how sad and disappointed she was about not getting to hook up with him, and they were flirting the whole time. He even asked if it was right to be talking about it, given that they both are in relationships, and she told him to stop worrying about it. In the end, she was still flirting, and he openly said he was horny by the end of the conversation. This happened a week or two ago, and to my knowledge they are still texting. I screen recorded everything, and I'm not sure on what to do now, as I violated her privacy to gather this information, which will probably go against me in the argument to come. Stories number 46. Aita for saying something? My mom basically posted my engagement publicly on FB. My fiancé and I are very private and don't share intimate moments online. We got engaged almost 2 years ago, and the wedding is in 1 month. I just had my bachelorette party the other night, and my mom took a photo of her and I from it and made it her public cover photo on FB with the title, My Soon-to-Be Bride. It's gotten an insane amount of attention since I never shared that myself. And people keep tagging me saying congratulations. I feel extremely uncomfortable. I am having a smaller, more intimate wedding next month, and was excited to share a few of those photos afterwards with friends, only not publicly. Her and I worked together for years, so it's many mutual friends, distant family, and even people from high school I don't engage with anymore from 10+ years ago. I am afraid if I say something my mom will get upset since she tends to be that way over little things, but this made me really uncomfortable. Aita for being upset wanting to bring it up. Stories number 47. Aita for not letting my fiancé check my phone. I'm a 36M personal trainer. My fiancé is 29F. I have a lot of female clients that are sending me pictures when they train alone. Form check, if you will, nothing. Making love. Couple of days ago, my fiancé saw one picture and flipped out. I showed her the entire conversation, explained that nothing fishy is going on. She has a male friend who I think has a crush on her. Yesterday, I wanted to give her a taste of her own medicine and wanted to know what they are talking about. She said no. This morning, I got another message from one of my clients. Fiancé wanted to see it. I said hell no. Now she's pissed and doesn't talk to me. Aita. Stories number 48. Aita for yelling at my father and uncle and calling them immature. Considering my family, I'm surprised I haven't had to ask this sooner. My sister was visiting and brought her 3 dogs. One dog, Ava, is notorious for running. Everyone in my family knows this. It's a constant topic because she's always getting lost. My dad was watching the dogs while my sister was out, and he let the dogs out loose in the unfenced yard. When I arrived at my parents' house, I saw Ava standing in the driveway, and I asked my dad why she was loose. He told me he let her out to use the bathroom, but wasn't able to get her back inside. I very calmly asked him why he didn't put her on a leash, and he just lost his shit. My dad and I have always had a very contentious relationship. We're both stubborn hotheads, but I've been doing a lot of work to change this in myself. I don't remember exactly what I said, but I remember purposely keeping it level and non-confrontational because I knew exactly how he was going to react. I went inside to get a leash and some treats and tried to lure Ava inside. After half hour to an hour of being out there by myself and calling my sister for tips, I go inside to get more treats and another dog to hopefully lure Ava to me. When I'm getting the other dog, I asked my uncle and dad if they could come out and help. They both laughed at me and refused. I admit I called them lazy and was a bit pissed, but I just grabbed the dog and went back outside. After another half hour or so, my aunt stops cooking dinner to come out and help. My mom pulls up shortly after and she tries to help also. My mom is currently suffering from Lyme disease, and if anyone knows what that's like, it's hell. It's like having the flu on steroids. At one point, Ava takes off into the woods around my parents' house and towards a large park filled with people and kids. So now I'm really pissed and I start yelling at my dad and uncle to come out and help. I did use some choice words and I accept my fault in that. The whole situation continued to get more and more out of control. I ended up calling my brother-in-law, who was 2 hours away visiting friends he hasn't seen in years, and ask him to leave and come help me. At least an hour later, my father and uncle finally come down in a vehicle and help. By this point, I'm livid, and I yell at them, calling them a few choice names like immature man-child. Yeah, wasn't my best moment, but I was just done at that point. A week later, and my dad is still angry and wants me to apologize to him and my uncle. I did say I was wrong for yelling and calling me them names, but I really don't think I should apologize for being angry with their actions. I kind of feel like myself, aunt and mom, are the ones that are due the apology. Stories number 49. Starting my own business. I have been working for a company for 5 years. Before I started with the company, they used a contractor for all the work. I am a vehicle repairman with over 20 years experience, and when I started this job, there was no in-house repair or service. So the task was to start a service department and grow it. With a 3 to 5 year plan of starting remote service locations as well and have me manage them. I started the service department and have grown a large customer base underneath this other company. I have been scheduling 2 to 3 weeks for the last 2 years and have a tough time getting it all done by myself. I have asked for them to hire someone so we can take on more work and increase sales, and I've been denied every time. My garage space has been limited, and they just allocated 2/3 bays to warehouse storage for their inventory of equipment that they sell. I have had 5% increase in pay over the last 5 years, and with inflation, I'm struggling to pay my bills. I asked for a pay raise 6 months ago, and he showed me the profit and loss statement over the last year. I gross roughly $75,000 and the profited over $75K after expenses and my salary. I was denied the raise. None of the money I bring in stays in the service department. It goes into the general fund. So I have been planning and setting up my own repair business. The skills I've learned at this job are very niche, and I personally haven't met anyone within 3 hours driving that do what I currently am doing. So, am I a jerk for giving 2 weeks' notice and leaving the company to go out on my own without waiting for them to hire a new employee for me to train? I very much hope they use me as a contractor, but I'm skeptical because they might see this as leaving them in a bad spot. I have no stake in the company and it does not offer healthcare for my family of 5. The hard part is, even though I'm the only employee in my department, I've made really good friends with other employees at the company, and I feel like I'm leaving them high and dry. Stories number 50. Aita for saying something. My mom basically posted my engagement publicly on FB. My fiancé and I are very private and don't share intimate moments online. We got engaged almost 2 years ago and the wedding is in 1 month. I just had my bachelorette party the other night and my mom took a photo of her and I from it and made it her public cover photo on FB with the title, My Soon-to-Be Bride. It's gotten an insane amount of attention since I never shared that myself, and people keep tagging me saying congratulations. I feel extremely uncomfortable. I am having a smaller, more intimate wedding next month and was excited to share a few of those photos afterwards with friends, only not publicly. Her and I worked together for years, so it's many mutual friends, distant family, and even people from high school I don't engage with anymore, from 10 plus years ago. I am afraid if I say something, my mom will get upset, since she tends to be that way over little things. But this made me really uncomfortable. Aita for being upset wanting to bring it up. Stories number 51. Aita for not letting my fiancé check my phone. I'm a 36M personal trainer. My fiancé is 29F. I have a lot of female clients that are sending me pictures when they train alone. Form check, if you will, nothing. Making love. Couple of days ago, my fiancé saw one picture and flipped out. I showed her the entire conversation, explained that nothing fishy is going on. She has a male friend who I think has a crush on her. Yesterday, I wanted to give her a taste of her own medicine and wanted to know what they are talking about. She said no. This morning, I got another message from one of my clients. Fiancé wanted to see it. I said hell no. Now she's pissed and doesn't talk to me. Stories number 52. I think my mom is glad I was abused and I told her so. Aita, 31F. My mind is spinning. I feel like a major light bulb may have gone off for me, but I'm not sure if I'm reading too much into things. Some additional context is that I'm married to a wonderful man named Justin, 32M, and we have a daughter together, 2F. I'm the youngest of 4 kids and my father left when I was young. My mom got a new boyfriend who I'll call Steven for the sake of this post a few years later. I have a few memories of Steven being in the house and playing with me, but my memory of this time monthly is hazy. My mom says that when I was around 5 years old, Steven making love abused me. I have a very vivid memory of a doctor asking me about some of the touches and describing them to her, but I have zero memory of the abuse itself. I do believe something happened because Steven pleaded guilty to the crime. There was some physical evidence I won't discuss, and the police found illicit images of kids in his apartment. With that being said, my actual knowledge of what actually happened is entirely based on what I remember telling the doctor and what my mother has told me. In light of recent events, I've realized that what happened to me has always been a huge part of my mother's identity, and by extension, my identity. She told almost everyone we spoke to about the abuse I suffered, and she got a lot of attention for it. For example, when all of this was happening, kids at my church bought me teddy bears and wrote me "Get well soon" type cards. I don't remember getting the toys or cards, but my mom has kept them for me. She loves bringing them out and reading them to me all these years later and talking about how touched she was that the community stepped up for me. Also, at the start of each school year, she'd organize meetings with my teachers and tell them about the abuse I suffered, how I have PTSD as a result, and that they should tell her if I seemed to be suffering. She also told all of my friends' parents about the abuse for most of my childhood. I always felt self-conscious about everyone knowing what happened to me, but also I was so young and didn't know what was normal in this situation. I'll also note that during my childhood, my mom was overly protective. If I had a disagreement with a friend, she'd tell everyone I was being bullied. She never let me sleep over at the homes of friends who had brothers. She also asked for me to switch classes in 6th grade because she didn't trust the male teacher with me and thought he was creepy. She never liked my high school boyfriend and told me that she thought he was manipulating and taking advantage of me. When she found out I was making love, she started crying and asking if he had forced me to do it. I told her no, but she kept asking questions and implying she didn't believe it was consensual. All of this to say, she trusted few people with me and seemed quick to paint me as a victim in several situations where I objectively was not. When I got to college, I didn't tell any of my friends about what happened to me. It didn't feel like my story to share because I don't even remember it. Also, I desperately wanted an identity outside of what happened to me as a kid. I met my husband Justin in college and also didn't tell him about what happened to me. When he visited my family for the first time, my mom brought up the abuse and said that she's protective of me because of what happened to me as a child. Again, I hadn't told Justin, so he learned about the entire thing from my mother. He wasn't upset that I kept it from him, but was understandably devastated that I was harmed. My mom met my now in-laws at my college graduation, and, again, she told them about the abuse and everything I'd gone through. We had a huge fight about this later, and Mom asked why I was ashamed of my past and wanted to hide it. I explained to her that it's personal and not something I need to share with everyone, especially when they're first getting to know me. But my mom insisted, as she always does, that it's an important part of my history and people should know the truth. Over the years, I've put a lot of distance between myself and my mom. There are several issues in our relationship, but a major one is that she seems obsessed with what happened to me as a child and even seems to enjoy telling other people about it. This sounds really messed up, but I honestly think she's addicted to the attention and sympathy she gets when people learn that her child was hurt. I personally hate the attention and sympathy, but she seems to like it. I want to believe she's upset I was abused, but she's always so eager to tell others about these horrific things that were done to me. Now that I'm a mother, I can't imagine going about things the same way if my baby was in that position. My mom came over for the weekend to visit me and my daughter. I actually play in an adult soccer league for fun and have a huge bruise on my thigh where I got hit by the soccer ball. I've always bruised easily and was always banged up as a kid from playing sports. My mom saw the bruise, asked what happened, and started tearing up. When I told her it happened playing soccer, I asked if she was okay, and she said she wanted to talk about something else. Later, when my husband was out, my mom asked me how long he's been hitting me. I can't describe how shocked I was. My husband is a sweet and gentle man, and he'd never do anything to hurt me. I told my mom this, and she said she didn't believe my account of how I got the bruise. She also said that kids who are abused are more susceptible to being abused as adults, and I might be repeating the cycle. She says I clearly have a personality that attracts abusers and it's her job to protect me. I was furious. I told my mom that I've built a happy life for myself and no longer allow what happened to me as a child to define my life. I said it feels like she wants me to continue being an abuse victim. I told her it seems like she enjoys the attention she gets when she talks about the abuse and is always so quick to paint me as a victim. I said it seems like she wants me to be in an abusive relationship with my husband, which I can't fathom as a mother. My mom started crying and accused me of being brainwashed by my husband. I told her to leave my home and that I can't have a relationship with someone who would say that about my loving husband. He's obviously hurt and confused about why my mother thinks he would hurt me, and even more confused about why my mom is so eager to see me as a victim. My sister and I have spoken since, and she thinks my mom is just protective of me because of what happened. I'm not sure if I'm reading too much into things, but I actually think she likes that I'm an abuse victim. I feel sick about all of this. I'm especially upset about the fact that she's accusing my husband, who's the most wonderful man I know, of doing something so horrible to me. I feel terrible that my mom is doing that to him and honestly feel he deserves better than this. Aita, any advice would be appreciated. Stories number 53. Aita, for not cleaning my girlfriend's house the way that she cleans mine. My girlfriend 22F and I 26M both have our own houses that we alternate between. Sometimes she will contribute to cleaning over here, and when she does clean, she tends to be pretty thorough, and things look shiny. Whenever I am over there, I don't return the same level of energy. At most, I clean up our trash and dishes, and sometimes make the bed. Just casual cleaning up after ourselves during our time there. There are multiple reasons from my perspective why things are this way. One being that When I am over, I don't really leave her bedroom all that much. This is because her 40-year-old roommate makes me uncomfortable, for reasons I will not get into to prevent any biased opinions, but I am confident that my discomfort is valid. She completely understands where I am coming from. However, this man also owes her thousands of dollars and has been slowly fixing her car for her, so her wish is for me to act like I don't have an issue with him up until he's out of the picture, so that she can get what she's been owed first. She believes that if this circles back to him, then he will move out to avoid the tension of the situation, which would mean he'd stop working on her car and potentially not pay her back the thousands that he owes. I've respected her wishes and have played along, but having to pretend that my entire perception of him didn't change overnight is quite draining, and I try my best to avoid crossing paths and being locked into unwanted interactions with him. This makes my motivation to leave her bedroom quite small most times. My second reason is that her roommate's ex-wife and their 13-year-old son lost their trailer in a flood. So my girlfriend allowed them to stay at her place rent-free as long as they need. My girlfriend's dad is the landlord. This was roughly a year ago. It is a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom with no basement, so it's about the size of an apartment. To make it work, her roommate and his ex share the bedroom, and their son uses the living room as a bedroom. My house is the opposite. Over here is twice as big with a basement and only one roommate, so there is plenty of space. If I took everything that I own out of her room, it would look the same, while if she took everything she owns out of mine, I think that there would be an echo in my room from the new empty space. She can walk around naked half the time when my roommate is working, sit in the living room, and do whatever she wants to here. I basically interpret my house as our house, and her house as either her house or her roommate's family's house. That makes it hard for me to put work into the place. I hate feeling like I am providing for somebody who I don't even want to think about ever again, because if I deep clean the kitchen, and then we go stay at my house for a few days, then guess who gets to reap the reward for my work? Meanwhile, if we clean my kitchen, and then stay at her house, we come back here to a mostly clean kitchen, since it isn't being used by a family of 3. I also feel like since she keeps so many of her belongings here, I already am cleaning up for the both of us in a sense, because her still will always be mixed with mine no matter what. That leads into tonight. In September, my girlfriend asked me if I can bring my upholstery cleaner over her house and deep clean her living room furniture for her, as well as her carpeted floor. I told her that I could, but that I wanted to do my furniture first. I had literally just bought the cleaner as well, specifically for that reason. 1 month later, and things have gotten a bit worse for me financially, and it's really taken a toll on my mental health. Lack of energy has only allowed me to maintain the state of my house so that my progress can flatline rather than regress. So, I haven't done my furniture yet. She called me tonight and told me that everybody at her house has been waiting on me to clean the living room, and that everybody has done their part instead of me, and that she is sick of waiting. She told me that I claimed it as my responsibility when I was asked if I could do it, and now I am not holding up my end of the bargain. I argued that if that since then, her roommate's family are completely caught up on chores, then why can't they just do the living room too? Especially since they live rent-free and occupy that specific space 100% of the time that I am over there. I even offered to lend the upholstery cleaner so nobody has to wait on me. That really pissed her off, and I was basically told that I am pushing my own responsibilities onto others instead of holding myself accountable, and that it's not fair on her to contribute to 2 houses while I only contribute to 1. She said that she is sick of me not helping her the way that she helps me, and ended things off by saying that if this is how I'm going to be, then I better not ask her for anything ever again, followed by hanging up and ignoring me the rest of the night. I personally feel like the contributions that I do make are fair. When her car got fucked up, I offered up my car for her to use to get by until her roommate is done fixing it. Hopefully soon, but it's been a year now. Then she lost her job and decided to take up DoorDashing. So my car has been her main source of income since June. I end up walking home from work most of the time. It's not often I am home alone and have my car with me at the same time, but when those times do come, it usually isn't for long, because it's only a matter of time before she needs it again, so I accommodate for that. Her rent and bills are more expensive than mine, so she's only made just enough to make ends meet on her end. So I'm often buying food for the both of us on top of the dates that I take us on to try and keep some sanity and fun in our relationship. Lastly, Since she started school, she has not been working much, and just yesterday she started crying and asked if she can borrow $350 from me so that she can pay her bills in time. I ended up pulling from the money I had set aside to pay my car insurance in December and told her she can have it as long as the money is paid back in time for the sake of both of us since we both use the car. I always cook for her, I crack her back for her, I play with her hair, I surprise her with caramel frappes, I really try to make her feel loved. To be told that I better not ask for anything ever again, when I literally feel like I am over here giving whatever I can to keep her afloat and to make sure she is fed and loved, baffles me. Especially since she says that to me one day after asking me to borrow money. I feel like I really came in clutch for her. And while I don't expect praise for it, I definitely did not expect to be yelled at for not cleaning her house when I literally just helped keep the utilities on there. Aita for feeling this way. Should I put more thought into how I divide tackling my chores and assisting with hers? Stories number 54. Aita for not helping my cousin out during his wedding, and for telling my sister I am NC with her family and that will never change. Aita for not helping my cousin out during his wedding, and for telling my sister I am NC with her family and that will never change. Hey everyone, I 26F, recently went NC with my stepfamily. For some context, my mom and stepdad, who is like my real father, and will be referred to as dad from here out, have been together since I was 2 and married when I was 5. My dad had a daughter from a previous relationship, and then they had my sister. My dad, and technically sister, as well as his parents, never made me feel like a stepchild. I was part of the family. While I thought the rest of the family has accepted me as well. Here's a few incidents that happened to make me think otherwise. Firstly, my grandmother got sick with cancer. Me and my mom would often drive her to chemotherapy and help her bathe, shower at least 4 times a week. I didn't mind at all. It was difficult seeing such a strong woman rely on us for such basic things, but anything we could do to help family, right? One time my dad's sister was visiting my grandmother for 2 weeks and called us to come wash her mother since she was starting to stink. We assumed while she was there, she will be taking care of her mother. Secondly, when my grandmother died, the whole family was at her house, 5 hours after her death, separating her stuff. Yes, seriously. I didn't really want anything but still tried to be helpful, so I decided to go through grandma's photos and pack them in packs of family members for them to take home. I was sitting cherishing some memories when all of a sudden I heard a whisper saying, "No, she's not family." When I looked up at my cousins, were staring back. From what I could tell, one cousin wanted to offer me something of grandma's, and this was the other cousin's response. I didn't say anything since I was still in shock and didn't want to start a fight. After that, one evening there was a party. I honestly can't remember if I was invited or not. I just know I didn't go. It was 10 p.m., so me and my mom called my dad just to check in that he was still alright since we haven't heard from him in a while, and we know he's drinking. His phone was dead, so we called cousin 1. He picked up, but was obviously drunk. After we confirmed Dad was alright and just enjoying himself, cousin 1 didn't hang up the phone. So we stayed listening to his conversation with another cousin, where he went on a tangent about how me and my mom are leeches to my dad and not really family and some other stuff, basically talking shit about us. And cousin 2 telling him to shut up, because we are gamely, causing us to cut the whole crew off completely, except for cousin 2. Now for the final incident. Cousin 2 had a baby and then a shotgun wedding. I always liked cousin 2, even though he's 10 years older than me. He never treated me differently from our other cousins and would always try to get to know me more or find out about my life. I was excited for his wedding, and then I was told I was not invited since it was a child-free wedding. Bro, I'm 26. His fiancée/wife asked if I can pick up their baby girl after the ceremony and watch her during the reception. Now Reddit, here are my 2 questions. Aita for telling cousin 2 and his fiancé that I will not be picking up their child, since they shouldn't leave babies with children, and to ask one of his real family members. My half-sister, 20F, said she wants to reconcile with her family. I told her she's an adult and can make her own decisions. If she wants to do that, go for it. She just has to remember that I am NC with them, and I don't really see a situation in which this would change in the foreseeable future. So she has to keep that in mind when planning future events like birthday parties, wedding, etc. Aita, stories number 55. Ata for asking my boyfriend to stop smoking weed. My 28F boyfriend 30M likes to smoke weed. I knew that he did before we started dating 4 years ago, but at that time he said that he would quit if that was what I wanted him to do. I do not have any serious issues with weed, but also I do not think it is necessary to do every day or to have it as a habit. I know it's not as harmful as alcohol, but it still alters you mentally. I myself had smoked with him for approximately the first 2 years of our relationship. We both spent way too much money and time on it, I feel like. We both decided that it was wearing on our mentals and our relationship and that it was time to get our shit together. We were not clear-headed ever, and it caused/prolonged arguments. We both agreed to stop everyday use and to cut it back as we so heavily relied on it. We stopped for a few months about 2 years ago and have done it here and there since. It has been a cycle for us over the last 1.5 to 2 years. We would stop for a few weeks or couple months, then maybe do it a couple times, then try to stop again. But most times it was pretty hard for us to completely quit again. There were a couple months that we would go back to daily use. Every time that we were sober, we interacted with each other so much better and felt as if our relationship was so much better. He agreed at the time as well. Fast forward to now, he has been smoking consistently every day for about 1 month now, almost 2. Within the last month, I stopped completely because every time I take even one hit of it, I am completely anxious and paranoid. I was just gone for about a week on a trip. Before I left, I told him that I feel like he was getting back into the cycle of not being able to stop easily. He agreed and told me that as soon as I get back, he's going to be done. Well, now I am back, and he has argued that he no longer wants to quit. He wants to continue to smoke. He got mad and said I was controlling him and that I shouldn't take away what he enjoys doing. We argued for a while, where he pretty much took back all the things he said about how he agreed that it affects our relationship and him mentally. He said he is a different person now with a different mindset, and he can quit if he wants to, but he doesn't want to. He has said this before, although he doesn't remember. We ended up coming to a compromise of him smoking 1 to 2 times a week. My main issue is how he reacted to me about the situation. Very defensive and angry, but I also did not communicate the absolute best in the beginning, which triggered him and set him off. We have not argued this way in months since we had stopped smoking. I also am concerned that it will cost about $100 a month for him to smoke, which isn't as much as some people, but it still adds up to $1,200 a year. I never expected him to never smoke again. I knew we would always have occasional weekends or special occasions, which is what we have agreed to in the past, but now he changed his mind completely. He said if it's between us and weed, he would quit, but it was like pulling teeth to get him to admit that. He is a stubborn man with trauma and does not want to feel controlled, which I understand. I also worry about the weed being in the house with my dog, but my boyfriend is very careful about it for the most part. I am just tired of the back and forth, and I don't want it to be something that he has to have. He has also said that everyone has a vice and he just deserves to have one too. I just am tired of the back and forth. It is so hard to get him to see it from my perspective and see that it is affecting him. He thinks as long as he is working and productive, he should be able to do what he wants. Someone please get me advice. Tell me if I am the asshole. Something. Stories number 56. Am I the a-hole for giving my son what he wanted? My son 27M lives with me, 58F, and usually that is a great thing, but he has a meltdown when he gets angry. I am an avid canner, and today when he opened the canning pantry, a jar fell and hit him on the foot. I tried to be sympathetic and helped clean the mess, but he yelled I needed to move the jars, I'd stacked them precariously, etc. Somehow he blamed me for his accident. During the exchange he told me to shut up. So I did. I refused to talk to him, and only gave short answers to questions. When he asked, I told him I was giving him what he wanted. Now he's even more pissed. Was it childish? Yes, it was. But am I an a-hole for giving him exactly what he asked for, while he was yelling at me in my own home for an accident no one could have predicted? Edit, since many have asked, here are answers to a few questions. My son has both ADD and mild autism. Rages like these are rare nowadays, as he's been working on control for a very long time. He lives with me because A, it helps me since I travel for work. Stories number 57. Aita, for not being willing to lie on paperwork for my son's father to get housing. Hi there. A little background. My son's father, 39, and I, 33, were together for 7 years. I had my son in the beginning of the pandemic and had started noticing odd behaviors from my partner almost immediately. Going to his car often for medications for his heart condition, acting out of it, nodding off. Finally, early this year, it came to a head. As I was putting our son to sleep, he overdosed downstairs, fentanyl. Me and my current partner never have, never will, done hard drugs. So if I seem like an idiot for missing the signs or being in denial, Please be gentle. Nobody wants this. I came down to him slump, unconscious, dinner plate on the floor. I immediately assumed he had a heart attack or an episode. And when I couldn't rouse him, I called 911. They got there, and words I will never forget. Eyes are pinned. Get the Narcan. 1 dose. Nothing, 2 doses. He walked out of my home to the ambulance. Big guy's small house. He has kept his distance since then. Once-a-month visits started in April as he was in a treatment program through the VA. Sends child support every month. Then he relapsed in July. He lied about it at the time when I called him out for nodding off, and then admitted it a month later. He says he has been sober since, but I've seen him nodding out on his muscle relaxers. He is a disabled vet and has been trying to get an apartment through the VA for free for years. He simply does not want to work, and those are his choices. When we met, we were in school, he was working, has his own place, own car, everything. Had me contacting real estate agents for a house, while knowing he was denied for a loan. I sent him affordable listing to apartments near my home, which I own. He doesn't look at them. He wants it for free. Today, I picked him up to bring him to see his son, and he says to me in the same breath, I'm starting ketamine treatments. I asked if that was okay in recovery. He says yes, immediately followed with, for my housing voucher, I need you to sign that we have shared custody and that he is my dependent. I said I'm not signing anything that says my son's address is anywhere than my home. I claim him as a dependent every year. He says it's the only way, and I'd be ruining this for him. Then it changed to the paperwork, is only permission to take him there. Take him where? There's no apartment yet. And if there is, it's hours away. This man drove me and all 3 of my children while nodding off and refused to pull over and let me drive even though I requested. He has paid support, but my children are with me 24/7 and have been since birth. He is trying to make me feel like an a-hole for not being willing to sign this voucher paperwork for him. Aita? Son's father is an addict, hid it for years, putting me and my kids in danger, and now wants me to lie on paperwork that he has partial custody and that my son is his dependent for him to get a housing voucher from the VA. Then lied about what the paperwork was in an attempt to get me to sign. He can work. He doesn't want to. Stories number 58. Aita, for getting annoyed at my BF for letting a girl hit his vape that was being very flyery. We've hung out with this girl a couple of times as we have a mutual friend. I told my BF to shut down any conversation with her because she does way too much and has hinted that he is her type. I don't have any weird rules about not talking to girls and trust that he has good judgment. But when it comes to girls who have no respect or consideration of me as his GF, then there's an issue, and I would prefer he does not entertain any sort of conversation. We were at a bar yesterday, and she casually asked to hit his vape when she had her own. He said yes, which annoyed me because I feel like it's her continuing to push limits. Just want to add, I noticed her being flirty, but didn't want to say anything to him because I felt like he was being respectful of me, / didn't have anything to worry about and just didn't want to come off insecure. But he was actually the one who initially brought it up to me, saying that she talked a lot and he felt cornered around her. Stories number 59. Aita, for being upset that my male told my husband to sleep on the floor in a closet while his niece, brother and Sil all got comfortable rooms and beds. My husband had a trip back home planned for months and was going to stay with his parents as they have 2 extra bedrooms. Last minute, his brother decided to also visit with his wife and child, which my husband was actually excited about. While he was mid-flight around 11 p.m., my MIL, his mother, texts him saying he will be on the floor in her closet because the child needs her own room, and his brother and sister-in-law will be taking the other guest room. She said she did not text him sooner because she selfishly wanted both her boys under the same roof. I knew my husband wouldn't be comfortable in a closet, but still wanted him to come. Luckily, we have wonderfully loving friends who opened their home to my husband, and he got a good night's rest in a warm bed after a very long week and a long flight across the country. Mind you, this is coming from a very demanding and manipulative person, my MIL, who we have repeatedly given up our own bedroom upper floor of our home so she could have a good night's rest at her demand. This family gaslights, flips the script, and plays the victim, and I just feel crazy being upset and frustrated that they would treat him this way. Signed, Harry Potter's Wife Stories number 60. Aita, for making my mom choose between me and her partner. This is going to be a very long novella of a post. I apologize in advance. I honestly need feedback from people who don't know me or my mother that can be completely unbiased, and I will do my best to tell the story of what's happening as honestly as I can. If you can make it to the end, I would be so grateful. My mother, 56F, and I, 33F, had a very strong, close relationship when I was growing up. Gilmore Girls is the very best explanation. She was a single mom, and I was an only child. I have never had a relationship with my dad. My mom is an only child. Her mom has passed. So when I say she is my only family, she's really it. And she means the world to me. I called her every day from school. I hated being away from her for too long. I told her everything. She was my very best friend. I never had to hide anything from her or be scared to talk about anything in the world. I literally had the best mom. We were the Gilmore Girls to a T. She went back for her master's degree when I was in middle school, and we moved in with a friend of hers and his kids. During that time, I was molested by an individual we were living with. We were living in one town, while she was going to evening classes in another town about 45 minutes away, and working full-time in a town that completed the triangle of driving she had to do nearly every day. She was always gone for that whole 18 months. I never told a soul about what was happening to me because I knew my mom would unalive him, and I was afraid of going into the system or my mom having to quit school, and I knew she was trying to better our lives, so I kept my mouth shut. I started self-harming. Eventually, she graduated, and we moved to the town she worked in, and the monster was gone from my life. I say all that to make the point that while my badass mom worked her ass off for her degree, I feel like I gave up a lot for it too. It changed me, honestly. Fast forward and my angsty teenage years hit hard and I started working through my trauma. She went through an identity crisis when I graduated high school and started moving out places. She dated off and on. We had a rocky monthly of time where I was dark and working through what had happened to me. We were not nice to each other. We did things that hurt each other. I had work moms that I call Mama Sue or Mama Jane. She was very offended by that. She would give me the silent treatment if she was mad. Stupid shit. But also, we always showed up each other, more so her for me, even when we didn't like each other. She met my stepdad in 2013, I think. I never disliked him. The only issues I remember having was that their first Christmas together, they had been dating for 6 months. She chose to spend it with him and his kids. I want it very clear, I was not invited. I remember begging with her to spend Christmas with me and my grandmother and the kiddo that I had temporary custody of at that time. I remember sobbing my eyes out with my grandma, who was also crying at our first Christmas without my mom. Aside from one I spent with my aunt when I was 15 that she used against me for years. She didn't come home for Christmas. She did not call or text Merry Christmas. All I got was a picture of a ring saying that he had proposed, and she had said yes. My mom got proposed to with him and his kids and her new family, and I didn't even get to be a part of it. I was devastated. I have photos of me from that day where I just looked wrecked but trying to be okay for the kid I had custody of at the time, to not ruin his Christmas. I bring this up to show a pattern that you'll see as I go on. Eventually we got through it, they got married. I loved my stepdad. I never had fear that my mom was unsafe with him or that he would hurt her. I know we surely had mother-daughter spats, but nothing I remember off the top of my head. Normal, mother with a kid in her 20s junk. We really started building our relationship back. We talked. It was a meaningful relationship. I told her about what happened to me when I was in middle school. We got through it. We were back. We built a new adult relationship. Then my mom, who is a counselor, BW, met who I will refer to as the Parasite 15, in 2016, 27-ish I assume. He was her client, and he would forever change the course of my relationship with my mom. My mom has always had blurred boundaries when it comes to her clients. There are several clients that she has formed very close personal bonds with outside of the therapy room. And I didn't take up too much issue with that. That's her choice. I don't know how long my mom had been the Parasite's counselor when I was introduced to him. And I don't remember a ton because I went through a pretty rough abusive relationship in 2018 that does blur a lot for me. He was tall, skinny, and busy, like he was on speed. I know when I moved in with my partner, my mom had him move some of my stuff from our house that I lived in that she owned. He stole a pair of $200 Columbia winter boots. I can only assume he sold for drug money. Somewhere in 2017-2018 winter, my mom told me she was divorcing my stepdad. I was pretty devastated as I loved him very much. If I remember correctly, she told my grandmother first, and my grandmother prepped me, and I actually handled the conversation very well and was very supportive. I asked her if she was cheating on him, and she swore she didn't and that she wasn't dating the Parasite and didn't know if she was going to. I don't know if it's true that there wasn't an affair. However, she claimed she had sought therapy before making the decision. I later found out that was a lie. However, not my relationship. I told my mom I supported her decision to divorce her husband and that I was sorry it didn't work out. I only want her to be happy, and if she wasn't happy with him, then she had to do what she had to do. I think lack of smex drive and overall laziness led to the demise of that relationship. And she fell for the parasite that was willing to jump at her beck and call. Seeing as though her love language is acts of service, it was the perfect storm. My stepdad asked if he could meet with me, and I said of course. I took a deep dive into the internet to find out more about the parasite. My stepdad came and told me that the parasite was a convicted smex offender who perpetrated against a child. He was a convicted me+H addict and dealer, a thief, and a liar. All was true. He had a rap sheet as long as I am tall. I was angry that my mom didn't disclose any of this to me and get my permission before introducing him to me. I feel strongly that one should have to give consent to having a smex offender drug addict brought into their life, or to at the very least, be aware. Spring 2018. This is where things get blurry, because I was filled with so much rage at my mom, the parasite, my partner, and the abusive relationship I was getting out of that. It's all jumbled. I found out that my mom moved to another town even farther away. I don't remember why, but my partner and I decided to go stop by the new house. I hadn't been there and they had been there for 6+ months. I didn't even know she moved until months after she had done so. I remember that my mom wasn't home. The parasite was there, and he showed me around. He was living in a dilapidated camper. There was a trailer my mom was living in. I remember it had no kitchen sink or water, no floors. She didn't have a bed, just a recliner. It was a mess and dirty, and my mom had never lived like that. I was in shock. The yard looked like a junkyard. Cars and shit were everywhere. It was not my mom. It was scary. I got in the car to leave and started sobbing as soon as we left the driveway. Called and told my grandmother. I was just confused, worried, and mad. I know that my mom started bringing the parasite to family functions with extended family, second cousins, and such. I threw a fit. It is a 2-year felony conviction to be in an intimate relationship with your client. Not only could she face prison time, but she would most definitely lose the license that we both gave up a lot for. And she knew that. She was taking a child predator around our family with young children and not disclosing it to them, asking for permission. She was choosing to date someone who assaulted a child who was the same age as I was when I was being assaulted, which made it feel to me like what was done to me was okay. His some offender address is registered to her home. She is aware that I not only want kids, but I want to be a foster parent, and that can impact my ability to become a foster parent. Not only that, but I love her and want her in my life and the lives of my children, and if she is with him, that's not happening. I will never forget what she said to me. He served his time. You think you're better than him, and you're not. You think you're better than a child molesting meth head, but you're not. My mom doesn't think I've equated to anything better than a smex offender addict. It was the line that I have repeated to myself for years since. Yeah, he did serve 7 years for apping a little girl, but that doesn't make the fact that he did it go away. If my perpetrator served time for his crimes, would she welcome him back into our lives with open arms? No. I told her I didn't want to see him or speak about him, and she better never bring him around me or my grandmother. I told her I didn't like who she was with him and that she's not the mom I grew up with. I told her that if he was coming to holidays, I wasn't. Obviously, there was a lot more to this fight that drug on for quite some time, and it was pretty mutually aggressive and mean. She stopped bringing him, and we didn't speak about the parasite for a very long time. I haven't seen the parasite since then. It was like he didn't exist, but neither did our relationship. She lived about 45 minutes away. We didn't talk except on obligatory holidays with my grandmother that were cold and emotionless and sad. She would make time to come to my town to see all sorts of people. She had tattoo apps, groomer apps for the dogs, apps with clients. She scheduled all of this months in advance. Never once did she say, "Hey, I'll be in town next week. Want to grab lunch?" Never asked to make plans. At best, she would tell me, "Hey, me and client are grabbing lunch. Want me to bring you lunch?" And then she and her client would come eat lunch with me at my office where we just talked to and about her client. On the rare occasion I would ask to do something, she would say no. But I honestly was going through so much that I didn't reach out to do anything either. Our relationship was non-existent. Summer 2018, I separated from my partner after a very brief, tumultuous year together where I got things shattered on me, thrown at me, and pushed down the stairs. I stayed because I believed that I could love the alcoholism out of her. But after a year, I was all done. I kicked her out of the house that I couldn't afford on my own, and that forced me to move across the state in with my grandmother. My grandmother needed help. She needed someone to intervene on what she had going on, and she was very lonely. It was, at that time, a win-win. My mom didn't want to or have time to help me move. She was always sick, and she knew the parasite wasn't allowed to. So she said she had a friend who needed work, and she said she would pay her to help me move. This friend, we will call her Stacy, was about the same age as me. She was a recovering addict. Shockingly enough, she was my mom's client. I was nervous but desperate, so I accepted the help and let this stranger into my home to pack all my stuff while I was at work. And then we drove together back and forth across the state, where we couldn't help but get to know one another. And she is honestly one of the best people I've ever met. She said, "You're nothing like the picture your mom paints of you," which is also something that broke me. Stacy, I learned, was very close with my mom and viewed my mom as a mom figure to her. Ironically enough, my mom referred to Stacy to other people as her adopted daughter, which hurt a lot, seeing as though she made me feel like garbage for calling my coworker Mama Jane. Stacy said that my mom warned her that I was sneaky and would try to get any information I could out of her about my mom and or the parasite. But the entire time I hadn't said anything negative or mean about my mom, and I hadn't spoke of the parasite. She said that my mom told her that she better keep her mouth shut and not say a word to me about anything. And then Stacy promised me to secrecy and open the floodgates about the parasite. She told me how he was doing and dealing drugs, how he was in and out of jail, which I knew. I had been following his intake and release closely. She told me how people were breaking into my mom's property, sheds, and cars looking for drugs. She said she feared for her life, and that is why she got a gun and put up cameras. She said she had witnessed the parasite throw shit at her and scream at her in a me-plate rage. She said she was scared for my mom and that she didn't deserve any of it but didn't know what to do. There was so much more she disclosed. That's the tip of the iceberg. I didn't know what to do with the information. I called a few of my mom's friends to see what they knew. Most knew nothing. Some knew a little. I eventually told my grandmother everything. But again, the relationship between my mom and I was cold. It was gone. We didn't speak hardly at all. My grandmother was so upset. I partly regret telling her because it broke her heart, she cried. I sought therapy. I started having nightmares of him killing her. I was checking my mom's Facebook every day to make sure she was posting and alive. If she didn't post on Facebook, I made my grandmother call her because I knew she would answer the phone for her. If I knew he was in jail, I would try to reach out a little bit. She always shut me down. If he was out, I couldn't talk to her past 8. She could never video chat. She never looked healthy when I did see her. She was absent. She lied. She claimed all the time that she was sick. She posted photos of her with him and his daughter. She accepted tickets he bought with his money to a Pink concert that she went to with him and his daughter that she knew I wanted to go to more than anything, and flaunted it all over social media. Stacy would give me updates when she was around. She told me that when the parasite was in jail, my mom was maintaining his phone and enabling him to still be able to deal from jail. I got to the point where I mourned her like she had died. I had to, because the anxiety I lived with every day wondering if she was dead was drowning me. And that was what my therapist and I worked out, was that it was okay to grieve the loss of someone living as if they had passed, if that is how I had to get through it. We used a lot of tools that she used for parents and partners of people in the throes of addiction. It was the hardest time of my entire life, the darkest shit I've ever lived through, and my grandmother went through it all with me. She watched it all happen and heard about it every day and listened to me cry my heart out more times than I can count. My mom never found that I knew all the shit that I knew until a month ago. Finally, in 2022, he was sentenced to 2 to 20 years in prison for more drug and theft charges. My mom put him there. He had charges in multiple counties. I was told that she was the one that called his probation officer. Now, I don't know exactly why, if it was the violence, the theft, or maybe it was that he brought home other women and slept with them in her bed. Maybe it's that he was so high he couldn't do the manual labor she kept him around for. No idea, but he was gone. I celebrated and breathed a sigh of relief. She started coming around. I was not open at all to having a relationship with her because she was, in some ways, dead to me. And I worked through that hell. The thought of letting her back into my life seemed unimaginable. It was painful. Nonetheless, she was around more, and we naturally had more contact. I went back to my therapist. I very cautiously started letting her back in. We very slowly started to rebuild. It took a lot of effort on both ends to choose that. It took a lot of work by both of us. We still did not speak of the parasite. I assume she knew I knew he was incarcerated. My grandmother died after a brief battle with cancer in November 2023. That brought us closer as well. And more recently, I have just felt like I have my mom back. We have a relationship filled with emotion, meaning, vulnerability. There's trust and communication. We don't fight. I can go to my mom's house whenever I want. I look forward to a future with her in it and being a grandma hopefully soon. She has played a huge role in me getting on my feet. We have spent the last year and a half building that. She's my person. I want her to move closer to me, and she is one of the most important people in my life now. I knew his parole hearing was coming up. I wrote 2 letters to the parole board with victim impact statements begging and pleading with them not to release him. I prayed hard that they wouldn't. I talked to my mom about moving to another state, which she was actually up for, and that gave me hope she was done with the parasite. At the same time, she was doing things that made me think otherwise. For example, the parasite loves Chevy. We drive Fords. She bought this $8,000 POS Chevy that hardly runs. She lied and told other people that she only paid $2,500 for it. I assume, so that when he destroys it, like he's done many times before, they don't realize he destroyed an $8,000 truck she took a loan out on. Her aunt, who had been staying with her, was told she had been out right around the time I knew he was set to possibly be released. She had an unhealthy weight loss surgery. I fear she believes that if she is skinny, that maybe he won't cheat. There were a few other things I saw her getting in line that seemed very much intended for the parasite's return. I was scared. I do laundry and dinner at my mom's on Sundays. This is time I've come to love and appreciate more than anything. About a month ago she said, "I've been dreading talking to you about this," and I lost it. Reminder, she still think I know nothing of what's happened in the years prior. So she started out by trying to paint him like some good guy. I didn't let her. Scream crying. Irrational. I spilled that I have known everything the entire time. A grown 33-year-old woman having a meltdown because what I am hearing is that I have to mourn the loss of my mom again. I took a shower and came back out to the living room. I wrote out my concerns and issues in a rational format. I let her read it. We had a very meaningful and healthy conversation. She validated my concerns, and she claimed that she and his daughter, who lives 2 hours south of us, had the same concerns about her safety. She said that his daughter was willing to take him, but she, my mom, chose for him to come back to living with her. She said she was going to put her guns and important documents in my house. Now I'm sure she was trying to make it seem like she was doing this for her safety, but it's because it's a condition of his parole that there can't be weapons in the home. I'm not dumb. She promised to let me know when he was back in the home. She said I was always welcome at her home. He can leave. I asked her to make sure her whole support system would be aware as well, so everyone can keep an eye on her safety. I begged her to let him go to his daughters. I begged her to go to therapy, and possibly even do therapy with me, and help me get back into therapy through her workplace so I can get support through this, which she skipped over and never answered. It was long and painful, and I cried a lot. But in the end, there was no change. She swore that it was the last time, that if he doesn't stay clean and straight, she promised she was done. The next morning I sent the following message, copy and pasted. I feel like I've been a vault for 5 years, and now Pandora's box has been opened. And there's so much spewing out of me that I've had to repress. The only person that I ever told everything to was Grandma. And I can't even call her and tell her everything. You never responded about the therapy. I'm trying to work through my shit and articulate things in a healthy way. And I hope you know that. But there's a lot of anger and fear, and that makes articulating things difficult in some ways. We talked a lot about how I'm scared for you, I'm scared for our relationship. The other thing I'm really struggling with is that I feel that by you ignoring and accepting his actions of sexually assaulting a child that was around the same age I was when I was being molested, you're essentially saying it was okay. Back when we used to fight about him, you said he served his time, and that eats at me, because so fucking what? That doesn't erase what he did or fix his brain. Having served time is irrelevant because he made a conscious choice to sexually assault a little girl. There is something biologically and chemically wrong in his brain that just doesn't go away for that to happen. That's a special kind of monster. I know that before I interjected and told you I already knew all the BS, you were going to attempt to tell me about the assault and make it seem like it was no big deal. I feel like it's just no big deal to you. And it is so hard for me to hear you, in actions not words. Say he sexually assaulted a child, just like was done to me as kid, but it's not a big deal and you love him so you're gonna overlook it. And that is very hurtful to me. I spent a lot of time talking in therapy about this and how I feel is very valid. Because I don't understand why sexually assaulting a child is not a deal breaker for you. That lack of understanding is probably the key. Because if it was okay and acceptable for him to do it, then it was okay for Kay to do it to me. And there is no way around that. And that's super hurtful. Because I never got the justice I deserved. Because I was too scared and protective of you to talk to anyone. And I feel like you brought this perpetrator into our life when you had the choice not to. That's really bothersome. I'm really struggling navigating that. I'm really struggling to figure out how this is going to work for us. I don't care if he's on his deathbed sick. I have zero empathy for him. That is my big boundary. No contact. That's what's best, everyone. I want to be able to come over whenever I want to, and I will give warning, but I have to be able to trust he will not be on the property. In my world, I want him to not exist. I'm sad that can't just happen. I have prayed that he'd disappear one way or another. I've never hated anyone the way I hate him. I think you underestimate that. I'm afraid that you are going to choose your relationship with him over your relationship with me. That we just got back. I'm scared that I'm going to see him, and I know I will go off screaming at him and cause a scene and verbally accost the hell out of him, and I decay how I would react. I've role-played in my head how I would react if I ran into him, and it never goes well, and I just end up in tears and shaking. I have years of wanting to finish him bottled up, and I'd love nothing more than to beat the shit out of him. And I've never felt that way about someone. Not only for hurting my mom repeatedly and putting you in danger and making you feel like you need a gun, and for coming between you and me, but also for what he did to that girl. Please promise me never to put me in that situation. I am not giving up my time with you. We have spent a lot more time together lately, and you have chosen a partner that can't be part of that. But I'm not giving up any of that time for his comfort. I'm scared. I'm losing my mom. Again. In any capacity. I get you're not scared of him. That's cool. I wasn't scared of my partner. I'm not scared of her. Doesn't mean she can't be very dangerous when she's intoxicated. Doesn't mean she couldn't have broken my neck pushing me down a flight of stairs when she got drunk off her shit. Never thought she would do that. She was so lovey. I'm scared for you. I know you paint him in whatever way you need to, and I hate that. I get to scream to everyone around me how fearful I am. Because I spent 5 years shutting up, and I can't do it again. I checked your Facebook every day for proof of life. If you didn't post for 24 hours, I'd tell Grandma and she would call. I am the only child of an only child who is a single parent. You are literally all I have. I don't think you understand the complexities of that and the protectiveness that comes with it. I don't have aunts or uncles to call. I don't have siblings to call. I don't have people that I can share my grief and fears with like I did to Grandma. I have had VineLink set up to notify of anything with him for 4 years. And I feel like you need to be fully aware of how I feel, because for the years I had to sit silently scared to fucking death if you were even alive, or wonder what the fuck was going on and couldn't tell anyone anything except Grandma, who knew all of it. It's all bottled up, and I'm not going to sit by and do nothing, because I know in my gut this is not going to end well. And I can't fathom losing my mom because you think he won't kill you and you continue to enable him. What is your end goal? What I heard you say is that yes, you have hope, but you're pretty certain it won't last and that it's pretty likely he will return to drugs. If that's true, then aren't you setting you both up to fail? If you're going into it knowing the chances are slim, he will stay clean, what's the point? And let's say he does stay clean. What does this look like for you long term? What does a future with him look like? You have a partner that everyone does or will know is a child predator, addict, unfaithful, emotionally and mentally abusive individual, a con man that can't get a meaningful job, that both your daughter and adopted daughter Stacy both hope goes away in whatever means necessary, that you can't do holidays with, that has to leave any time you spend time with family, that you have to financially support and parent, is a full-on liability, a partner who, should you fall ill and have to be in the hospital, or Lord forbid, be on hospice, can't even be there for you, because over my dead body will I allow him to be able to be anywhere near you medically or in an incapacitated state.